Hey, team players, welcome back. Today's going to be an awesome one for you. We're literally sitting in injury hell across the league. I don't know if you caught this, but whoever your starting running back is out, and whoever your starting quarterback is about to be out, especially if he's named Lamar Jackson. So here we are in a world where everyone's in pain, everyone's in dire stress. How can we exploit this to make our team's championship levels and go through with the best possibility, not just to get through October, but to win the whole thing? That's what we're all about here on Local Football Flavor. Let's dish up some W's. Oh, yeah, Bob. I said to you last night, I have a first rounder, CeeDee Lamb, a second rounder, Bucky Irving. Third rounder is Hurts, so it's only a matter of time. Fourth rounder, Evans. And then I don't know when I got Jennings, Rishi, but all of them inactive.
You should see my Scott Fishbowl team. And as I'm sitting there scrolling through like the waiver wire, because there's basically like nobody left, right? As I'm scrolling through there, I'm like, oh, Chuba's hurt. Oh, Bucky's hurt. Oh, Rice is still suspended.
Because you're not cutting them.
This is what's happening. I'm like, and then I look at my bench and I'm like, oh, Calvin Ridley's hurt. Pearsall's out. Alec Pierce is hurt. I'm like, and so like, thankfully there's like those bonus points for the tight ends, or else we would be in purgatory. But it's good to see everybody in the chat. Jason,
yeah, love you guys. Hey, make sure everyone clicks on, like and subscribe.
Jesse, Wumbo, Jay Hong, Steve, Jonathan, we see everybody in the chat. We'll get to all these questions, so let's get cracking. Jason, man. Here. This question is going to be relevant to a couple of people. So what tight end to start this week or rest of the season? Ertz, Njoku, Mason Taylor, Theo Johnson. So I just want to preface this by saying that the way I'm going to order these is going to be because of the potential target share that I feel is going to happen the rest of the season. Based upon injuries and come-ups for certain players, okay? So number one for me is Mason Taylor. Number one rest of season is Mason Taylor. What I like to see out of a rookie tight end is increased target share in an offense with limited targets, okay? When I look at Justin Fields, he's going to be throwing the ball approximately 15 to 22 times a game on average, somewhere in there, and running about 7 times a game. Mason Taylor's the other option in town with Breece Hall. So there's 3 main targets in there. I like that condensed target share. I like that he got 7 targets this last week and 5 the week before. Then my next up is Theo Johnson. Theo Johnson on a team that just lost their star wide receiver. Now you're going to a group of wide receivers.
He cussed again.
It doesn't really make any sense. Jackson Dart is going to play most likely this week. We'll see. But Theo Johnson's target share is variable. Now, he's not a high ceiling guy. Okay, so that's the other thing about him. None of these guys right now have super, super high ceilings. Then I would put Njoku. What my issue is with Njoku right now is that he seems to have a low floor and a low ceiling as long as this quarterback situation isn't figured out. Now, Dylan Gabriel can be the guy that takes him to the promised land. We'll see. But Harold Fannin is also still there taking targets. My last is Zach Ertz. The reason Zach Ertz is my last one is that although his targets are stable, okay, the upside that you have is very touchdown dependent. So you know that if he's getting 5 targets, he has a big chance of getting a touchdown, but he's not going to get you the yardage. So he has a very much a low floor. So how I'm going to order it is Mason Taylor, Theo Johnson, Njoku, and Ertz. But if I'm in a touchdown-heavy league and Daniels comes back, I would move Ertz up that board because Ertz is going to probably catch more touchdowns than these other guys.
And Jason, I love it when it happens, especially when it's the first question of the day. I couldn't disagree with Bob even more. The fact is, for me, this is an incredibly easy Njoku all day, regardless of whether you got Fields or not. And here's my primary reasons why. Rookie quarterbacks check the ball down. Njoku is built in Cleveland's offense to be the check down. Reason number 1. Reason number 2, Tillman's out. He now is the number 2 receiver. He is the only number 2 receiver of that group. Maybe Mason, but not really Mason. So I would go Njoku from Cleveland as my tight end to pick. Mason Taylor from the Jets would be my number 2 choice. You can't convince me to touch Theo Johnson, although the same argument I'm making for Njoku, you can make for Theo Johnson. The giant difference is I 100% trust. This is about to sound stupid coming on my face, but it's going to happen anyway. I 100% trust Cleveland more than the Giants. And that's how bad the Giants coaching staff is.
All right, let's keep it moving.
So that would be my answer. So
Cardinals running back will be better?
I'd go Browns. Yeah.
When it goes to this, Jason, there's two viewpoints to go with. Coaching staff is saying that everybody's going to get a look. So,
which means they don't know.
Knight, Carter, and Amari. So they're probably going to have Carter in on the early down work, which is a valuable role a la Connor. Then Amari's probably going to play the role that he was most likely born to play, which is that pass catching role, which has some limited upside on this team. And then Knight will probably scoop in there at some point in time. What I do know, though, is that Tennessee is not very good against running backs that are pounding it up the gut, up the middle. So I'm on Carter, even though I think Amari could potentially be a PPR play, but I think that he's still going to have limited reps on there. I think he might only get like 4 catches. We'll see what he does with them. But I think Carter could be that piece that might win the week.
Team players, let me give you some easy money. This isn't the question that was asked, but you can go make this check right now. Go on Cardinals under right now. Season long total. We have an idiot under center who has a lot of moving parts behind him. The Cardinals will implode. That coach will be on the hot seat by the end of the year.
So for this question here, I do feel when I look at this, when I look at the player pool, if Bucky is out, I am starting Rachaad White.
Yeah, definitely. No doubt.
Rachaad White, just like if you're not starting him this week with Bucky out, I think that you need to reevaluate the way he's going to be used is going to be in the role that he was before.
Bucky's role. They never changed the role.
Before Bucky. It hasn't changed. So for me, it's going to be Rachaad White. I actually have Tony Pollard. Although it's a really good matchup, I actually have him off my lists in DFS lineups because they're most likely going to be playing from behind. This game is probably going to be really ugly. And while it's a really good matchup, and I could see Tony Pollard getting 60 to 90 yards, I don't know if that touchdown upside is potentially there. So that leads me then to Wan'Dale and Shakir. And while both of them don't have the highest of ceilings, I do think that Wan'Dale against New Orleans is a smart enough play with a passer who is most likely going to utilize Wan'Dale. So I think that I'm on Rashad.
There's no neighbors.
I'm on Rashad and Wan'Dale because.
So Jason, that's our answers. Give me Bucky out of Tampa and Wan'Dale of the Giants.
And I wouldn't start Amari over White or over Wan'Dale. And Jason, Terry, if he plays, White if no Bucky or Carter, I think it's White out of those three.
Ask us questions today?
It's White out of those three. Smitty, 2 quarterback flex league, start 1, Mac Jones, Rattler, or Gabriel. So this is a really interesting question for me. I would be convinced that I think Mac Jones would be a good play today if he had Ricky Pearsall and a couple of those guys. I think that Mac Jones probably isn't a good touchdown play this week. He could potentially run it in, but he also is dealing with a knee injury himself. Spencer Rattler, the matchup against the Giants, while it's not, the worst, it's not incredible.
I wouldn't want that.
In the first match is rough. I think that I'd lean Rattler on Thursday. And I don't think that I'd start Mac Jones tonight because I don't think there's enough weapons. Although Kendrick Bourne and Demarcus Robinson could come out of the woodwork and give Mac Jones a good game.
Bob, for me, this is this straightforward. The Giants' defense pass rush is scarier against Rattler than what Mac Jones is going to be facing tonight.
And that's fair,
it's not straightforward.
But I do think the Rams
rip Rattler alive.
The Rams do have a decent enough defensive line as well. I'm worried about all 3 of those options, to be honest with you.
Yeah, none of them were sexy.
If I had to choose one, I'd choose Rattler. Joe would choose Mac Jones, but I don't really like any of them. Start 2 running backs, Monty, Henderson, Marks, and White. I think Monty is a slam dunk start this week, guys. Yep. If you have Monty, you should be playing him in your lineups against the Cincinnati defense. there's going to be a point in time where he could break up. He could have another
120 yards.
He could have another 100-yard game, and I'm on Rashad White out of that.
Yeah, exactly. So now we're on the same page, Bob. Here we go.
Monty and White. I think that Marks is a little bit of a red herring right now. I'm not really sure what direction I want to take Marks. I want him on my team, but I don't know if I'm confident.
Baltimore is going to come out on fire without Lamar, and they ain't going to push on defense.
They also lost one of their defensive linemen last week, which frees up some space for Marks. But again, what you have to understand about Houston last week is that was the first time that they were in positive game script like all year. So when in positive game script, what we saw is that they want to invest in running the ball. And what you have to understand about Houston is that if there's no pass rush getting to them, their offensive line is still garbage, but it's not feeling that pressure as much.
No, Bob, I'm thinking this running backs more. You're convincing me into Marks, because what kind of game pressure is Baltimore going to do without Lamar? Like, Cooper Rush cannot run that offense.
Well, Cooper Rush ran Dallas's last year.
He ran a passing offense in Dallas, not a run-first offense where he's expected to run.
That I'm not sure of, but I would have Monty and White as my top 2, and I would highly consider Woody Marks, depending on how you think that game script is going to go.
Yeah.
I just traded Jake Browning for Rashee Rice.
At a time? Like,
win-win. That's a win-win, Smitty. In a super flex league, to get rid of Browning because he wasn't doing anything, pushing Rashee Rice on your team. I can't believe that you actually did that. I love it.
That's an amazing win.
I'm on this first deep dive of the day. We'll get to that deep dive. I just started in the chat. Trade approved, Alejandro. Sent MHJ, Harvey, and Hunter Henry over for JJ and Kraft. Tried to trade May and Bowers for Allen, but they wanted a running back for my Bijan. Nope, I'll just play the matchups with Fields and May. I think that's a smart decision. And what you look here is that you sold Harvey on a really great game where they took Dobbins out once Dobbins reached 100 yards. And I don't know how often that's going to happen, but you did see what we were talking about week 1, where Harvey does have playmaking abilities. Okay. Harvey does have playmaking abilities. So when I look at Harvey and I see like, oh, is that good piece to trade away? Yeah. Right now you went into Justin Jefferson and you went into a tight end that is a focal point of the offense to a degree. I like that trade. I think you did a good job. Jason, Chuba probably out this week. Yeah. Again, that was a rough one to swallow for me. I'm in 3 leagues. Is dropping Carter, Amari, and Spears and picking up Rico in all 3 a good move? Or who to drop for Rico for those 3? I think that Rico is a good play this week. Miami's defense, is not great against the run. It's not great against the pass. While Bryce Young is so-so and suspect at times, I do think that Rico is an interesting play.
The Carolina running game is better than Arizona's, and that would be my answer.
If I were to drop any of those guys for Rico Dowdle, I would drop Amari.
Yeah, that's right.
I would probably do it in all 3 leagues, to be honest with you. I like Rico a little bit better. Dropped Hunter Henry for DeMarc Carter. Was this a good idea? I don't think so. No. But if you needed a running back, yeah. We're all sitting here with running back woes, and some people starting running backs are looking really thin or looking really ugly. Our Chase Brown owners, including myself, we're struggling. I lost Chase Brown, lost Bucky, top 2 picks. I'm rolling out Breece Hall and Travion, of course, but I put Michael Carter into my lineup because I have 2 flexes and I need to fill those flexes too. Do I think it's a great idea? No, but again, you need a running back. So yeah, sure. Wombo, Ridley, Keon Coleman, Kirk, Tucker, or Bourne PPR. Leaning Kirk or Bourne. All wide receivers score points versus the Ravens, but they might not have to throw a lot. And Bourne technically is the wide receiver 1, but his QB is Mac Jones. I also have Godwin or Diggs in PPR. Leaning Godwin, Diggs, or Addison, 0.5 PPR, leaning Diggs. Okay, so a couple things.
Diggs is getting more action, Wombo. So that there's a starting point there, but Godwin without Evans is so appealing.
Yeah.
It's so appealing to play Godwin.
So if I'm looking at these wide receivers here from this first question, out of this grouping of players, you could absolutely see yourself leaning into Kirk. Kirk is not a guy that's sexy by any metric, okay? But it depends on how you build the rest of your lineup, right? So he's going to be a solid, I think, a floor play. The last 2 games, he got 8 targets and 4 targets. He hasn't done much with those targets that he was given. He only has 45 combined yards with those targets that he was given. So the question is, because Baltimore might not be able to generate pressure on this offensive line, it could give CJ Stroud more time to throw the ball. If you put any questions in the chat, guys, we will answer all the questions in the chat. Don't worry about it. Stick around.
You're just delayed, guys.
Watch the show. We are a little bit delayed, but we'll get there. I think Kirk is the answer to this question, although Bourne is very interesting for the same reason I said earlier about them having nobody else. Bourne and Demarcus Robinson are really interesting tonight. I don't know how well that's going to translate onto the field. You could see tonight's game as being CMC field goal. CMC field goal. And so that's a little bit of my trepidation, my concern with Bourne. I think I like Kirk out of this grouping of guys, especially because Keon's going to have a tougher defensive matchup. Ridley is hurt, so you can't really trust what his snap share is going to be. Tucker's an enigma. He could have a great game. He might not, depending on what targets he gets. So I think Kirk is a floor play if I've ever seen one, and I don't really.
I'm going with the ceiling of Coleman, though.
Coleman has a ceiling. It's just tough to see it in the matchup that he's in. Also, Godwin or Diggs in PPR. Leaning Diggs, Godwin, Diggs, or Addison. Full point or half point PPR. Leaning Diggs. I like all three of these guys.
Yeah.
If this is the same league as these guys, Wumbo, then I'm starting all three of these guys over any of these guys.
True. But assuming they're different
league, if it's a different league, I really do like Jordan Addison.
Well, Addison's in a great position. I think Addison in the group of three is the one I go with for this week because he's already been acclimated to Europe and Cleveland isn't.
Yes. That's kind of my reasoning behind that.
Diggs, though, for the other two. And the reason for that is because Godwin now has had a game with his legs under him, and there's a good chance that Buffalo just destroys New England.
Yeah. So everybody in the chat, sir,
I think Diggs could have a long day on the bench because that whole offense will be on the bench.
Yeah, I like Diggs and Addison out of this group, and I like Addison a lot here, even though it's a tougher matchup. I think that it's going to be a good game for them over in overseas. Which kicker would you rank in order between McLaughlin, Pinheiro, Reichert, and Gay? I think Reichert is in a good spot. Again, already acclimated to the environment against a defense that is not going to
let up touchdowns. Cleveland does not let up touchdowns.
It's not going to really. I think it's going to lend itself to a nice Reichert game. Chase McLaughlin is interesting too against Seattle. Seattle might get a couple pieces back this week, and he did just kick long bombs, and we do know that they're capable of moving the ball downfield even with Rachaad White. So I think for me, I would probably put McLaughlin and then Reichert in order, those two guys, and the other two would be lower down on my list for sure. Wumbo, I jumped off the Njoku boat and got Darren Waller where I could, and Mason Taylor and Theo Johnson where I couldn't. Do you think it's worth trying to trade Tootin for Waller? I wouldn't trade a running back for a tight end.
Waller?
So here's the thing. Waller's going to get increased targets, but touchdowns, again, we talked about touchdowns the other day. If you think that Waller has a 10 touchdown upside in this offense, regardless of yardage, then yeah, I would pick him up. But he already scored 2. And we talked about this with like the Bijan v. other running backs debate last week, where we said, if you see continuous touchdown upside, it's great. But with Tyreek Hill going down, Darren Waller is going to be a piece on this offense that potentially could get more yards.
Declining offense as the year goes on. That
I would not
by losing Tyreek.
I would not
trade Miami.
I would not trade Tootin for Waller.
No.
I would not do that. So to answer that question, I would not do that. Jay, trade BTJ and Woody for Brees and Waddle. Now, This is something that I think is interesting. Joe says no. I think it's close. It's close. But what I would want you to look at before you did this, Jay, is I would want you to look at Houston's run defense schedule. If you see enough matchups where you think Houston could have a lead,
yeah, you do.
Then I would do it. Or then I wouldn't do it.
You keep marks,
right? Yeah. If I thought that Houston could play with a lead in X amount of games, then I'd keep marks. If I thought that the usage for Brees Hall was something that could see a slight uptick, I would go for the Brees side. Here's the other thing, is there's no stat out there right now that states that Waddle sees an incredibly increased target share without Tyreek Hill, because when when any of those wide receivers missed time last year, all those went to Jonnu. And that's kind of the reason why Waller is an interesting play, because of the Jonnu comparison in the target
scheme. The difference between last year and this year is that entire ship is about to rip apart when that coach gets fired. And then you're just left with tatters. And Waller's not talented enough of a player.
Who says this, Jesse? Don't scare us like this, man.
No, Lamar's out for this game and next week. He's coming back after the bye in week 7.
All right. Yeah, but Waller's interesting. Waller's interesting. I'm starting Waller over Ingram.
I give you that.
They're not showing, Steve. They're not showing enough to Ingram in this offense. So
Ingram's been a disappointment.
I'm starting Waller. For anybody dropping questions in the chat, we do get to all the questions. Just make sure. If you don't hear your answer, come back and watch us on the replay, and we answer all questions. Jonathan,
stick with us.
Flex 1, Wandale, Ioman, or DeMarcado. I'm on Wandale.
Me too.
Just because we know that he's going to get targets in this offense. We know that Scadaboo is probably going to be able to run against New Orleans, but it's going to be probably Slayton, Theo Johnson, and Wandale with a mixing of Jalen Hyatt and whoever else they have on the outside. I think it's going to be a good Wandale game. Probably around 14 points, maybe a little bit higher, depending on how the yardage goes. We appreciate the love, Smitty. Absolutely.
Love you, Smitty.
Thanks a lot. Click like, follow,
subscribe, guys. Hit like and subscribe.
Steve, in this situation, I'm on Diggs.
Me too.
Again, the negative game script for Pollard could be crushing this week. He's going to get decent yards, but I think it's going to be a hard time. Would you trade Nico before it's too late? He has had the same knee injury for 2 weeks. So, Jesse, this is a really good question.
This is a good question. It's hurting my heart, but I want to do it.
So I had a trade on the table a couple weeks back for Bucky, and I held off on Bucky because, of with Nico, and the guy wanted Puka and some other stuff, and we were just talking to spitball and stuff. The Nico injury to the knee does concern me. I don't know if you'd be getting ahead of the ball, but if the offer was good enough, I would. And what I would consider to be a probably a good enough offer would be something that I would be capable of starting in my running back position on a weekly basis. Say like a Breece Hall or higher. And then I would want to get a wide receiver, in that same conversation with all the injuries. Some of these wide receivers have pivoted around. But I would want to get a wide receiver that I saw that had upside moving forward. Not your JMOs, but I want like a weekly, decent enough higher upside. And if I had to pay up for a couple of guys, maybe I'm buying Jordan Addison right now, too, guys, because he did have a great
name at you here because I want your take, and we haven't talked about him at all. What about Lad from San Diego?
So
he's been crazy disappointing this year, but he was a stud last year.
So the problem with Lad, guys, and this is for people that own Lad, you guys know what you've been getting on a week-to-week basis, and it hasn't been startable. When we look at Lad, he's 35th in amounts of targets per game. Okay, so 9, 5, 7, 6. But he's not doing anything with the targets. And what concerns me is that Keenan Allen having a limited snap amount, those snaps are sometimes taking place in the red zone, and Justin Herbert looks his way.
That part
those targets should or could be going to Lad, and they're not. He's getting targets not in that same realm that he was getting them before, but it's not as catastrophic as people are making it out to be, right? When we look at his max targets, it's right around that window of like a wide receiver 3 right now on the season. So for example, he's down with the Jerry Judys, Troy Franklins, Chris Godwins, Sutton's down there too, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. If you feel like you want to buy low on Lad, you absolutely could.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Injury to Nico or an injury to Quentin Johnston frees up those targets, and I think that you might get that. But if you're in a win now capacity, you cannot trade.
No, you can't do it if you're in a win now capacity. But if you're in a spot where you're 3-1, Lad is a guy that people are bailing on like crazy. And
good reason.
I see Keenan Allen doing the same thing he did last year, fading away and Ladd taking off as a result.
So KJ, in my mind here, again, like I said, I'm starting Rachaad White. I'm starting Rachaad White.
Yep.
You can make an argument that you could start Henderson. I think that Harvey's a hard start this week against Philly's defensive line.
I think Henderson's a hard start against Buffalo.
Henderson is a hard start against Buffalo as
Sharps.
well. If Sharps is healthy, I think that Sharps is a reasonable start. He has a lower projection than any of those other guys. I would check and see if Vita Vea is playing. If Vita Vea is playing,
fair, but he's not.
I'm not starting Sharps. If he is not playing, I think Sharps could be a good play. So I'd be on Sharps and Rachaad White, but I would check if Vita Vea is playing. The saddest thing I saw this morning was 7 hours ago. Hot Tubbers dropped Tyreek Hill 7 hours ago. Hot Tubbers dropped Malik Neighbors. You know, Wumbo, it is hard when you have your top 2 of your top 4 rounds and you got to drop them. But, you know, some people quit. There are some people there that quit. It is rough. CC, welcome, man. Who do you like more in the flex, Worthy or Judkins? It's Judkins for me.
Well, it's a deep dive too. But
yeah, but we'll get to the deep dive part of it later here. But my initial reaction is Judkins.
Me too.
Scorpio, 10-man, 2-quarterback league, full PPR. I have Purdy, Burrow, Lamar, and Indiana Jones. God, jeez. And Gabriel on the wire. Who should I drop?
Burrow. I mean, he's the one who's not coming back. You know Burrow's not coming back.
So here's the thing, Scorpio. You need to win, and you need to win now. There's a likely case that somebody will drop somebody for Burrow, and you just kind of lose out on him. Purdy will be back in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Joe Burrow's not coming back till probably past week 12, if that. Cincinnati's not in contention. They're not going to make him suffer through anything. So if they don't have six wins by week 13, 14.
And if you look at their schedule, they ain't gonna.
He ain't coming back. So I'd be dropping Burrow. And then, you know, if you want to pick up Gabriel because he's the last starting quarterback, I'd do that. I picked up Dowdle off waiver wires this morning. I think it's smart. I dropped Kendre Miller, who I picked up as a speculative ad in case Kamara gets traded. Did I make a mistake dropping Kendre? This week, no. I think that Rico is a great play. I would keep my eye on Kendre. And KJ, if you had anybody else, I don't know what your roster currently looks like. I would really honestly think about picking Kendre back up because he did look good in that usage that he got this past week. So I would try to get him picked up again. If I was still rostering like Alec Pierce or Rashid Shaheed or something like that, I would try to make room for Kendre Miller. The Browns beat the Packers and the Giants beat the Chargers. They're both powerhouses. This game's going to be weird, guys. I mean, these games are going to be so weird going forward because things that we thought were true in week 3 or in week 2, 3.
If you thought the Chargers were a powerhouse, that's on you. They are not a powerhouse. That's on you.
Have the Packers on the bye. What defense smashes this week? New York Browns or Rams? So I think that you can write a story where the Rams are going to be a good play. But I will say this. The Rams previously have been 8.5-point favorites before. And it was a field goal matchup in rain, and they lost. And they lost 23-20 or something like that. For me, I'm on the Giants. I think the Giants are an interesting play.
I think so too.
Their defensive line can generate pressure. Their defensive line can generate pressure, and the pass catchers, I'm not quite sure what it has in store for Olave, Rashid Shaheed, etc. I think the game is going to be lower scoring. So for that reason, I think that I'm on the Giants out of that, but the Rams are very interesting. How do you feel about that, Joe? So finally, is Chuba losing his job to Rico Dowdle this year? I don't think so.
Not unless he's hurt.
But the usage has been an interesting split. For everything that we thought Chuba was going to be this year because they paid him buku bucks, it's not quite where we want it yet. And you have to ask yourself, is that due to injury or is that due to some other reason? Chuba's averaging about 16 touches per game. Okay. So, that is right around where you want it. And Rico Dowdle's getting about 8. So when I look at it and I say, all right, is this a bad thing? No, it's closer than I thought it would, but I don't think he's losing his job, but he is injured. So if Rico plays better and they're winning, Chuba's going to come back in and play, but it might be an interesting shift. Dustin, what's up? And if you're putting questions in the chat, guys, we will get to all of the questions.
Absolutely.
Here at Local Football Flavor, we answer all questions in the chat. So if you don't hear your answer and you got to get going and you want to come back and listen or watch on a replay, please feel free to do so. What's up, Dustin? Got a problem. Pittman, Woody, Dobbins, DeMarcado, Carter, pick 2 flex. I'm starting Michael Pittman. Okay?
Yeah, you have to.
Michael Pittman's a guy that is getting targets. He's getting touches. When we go and we look at a guy like Pittman, just pulling it up really quickly here, Joe. Michael Pittman is getting about, where's his targets per game? Getting about 7 targets per game. And he's doing a decent amount with those targets, getting like 11, 15 points, 8 points in there. I like that for my flex. When it comes to these other guys, like I said,
Woody stands out so easily. Like you can't pick Dobbins against Philly, and Baltimore is in a hard position to stop the run. Their line's been getting pushed around all year. I'm going Woody.
Yeah, I think out of those guys, I do like Carter. I could convince myself into Woody. I'm not starting Dobbins or DeMarcado. So It comes down to Woody and Carter. And I think for me, it's which one do you think is going to get more volume and positive game script? So whichever running back
I think Houston's going to have a real positive game script.
I think Carter's a good play. So Joe picks Woody, I pick Carter. But I think that both the teams are probably going to get positive game script. So which one do you think is going to get more touches? And it seems like Woody could. Sir, looking to trade Waddle plus Kelsey for Scadaboo plus Kittle. I have Mahomes, JT, Kyron Chase, Jason, Keenan, Fannin, ETN, DJ Moore, Marks, Kyler, Wandale. What do you think of the rest of the season?
I think that Kittle of those 4 players will give you the most positional value across the board, and therefore I would take it.
This is a trade that I would do. Kittle. This is a trade that I would do, and I think it's fair, and I think it doesn't hurt your team a lot. But what I would want you to do, sir, is I want you to think about DJ Moore. DJ Moore was one of my guys going into the season. And DJ Moore, say Roma Dunze gets hurt, yeah, his targets are going to go up. But right now, it's not usable. DJ Moore isn't usable right now. So that has a concern for me. But you have Wandale, you have Woody, and I like that. Getting Scadaboo. We'll see what happens with Scadaboo when Tracy comes back. They might use him just a tad bit less. He has one of the highest usage rates over the last couple of weeks. But his running style is definitely going to come to haunt him. Mac Jones or Rattler or Gabriel is the most cursed question I've ever asked.
It was a dark moment in your texting history.
It is a dark day.
It's been 3 years, but that was a sad moment.
Should I drop Franklin for Jalen Coker? I would. Here's the thing, KJ. If you're already winning and Troy Franklin's never touching your starting lineup and you're not even thinking about starting him, Jalen Coker is going to walk into a situation when he comes back from injury to earn targets.
Dude, why do you want the number 3 on one of the worst passing teams in the league?
Listen. I think when we look at Carolina, Hunter Renfrow is old, and that you cannot rely on him supporting that role going forward. They're not going to want to continue to play him if they're losing, especially Xavier Legette hurt, not showing anything. They're down to Teterow and McMillan. Bryce Young, I am betting on Carolina having negative game script, because when Carolina has negative game script, they're going to pass the ball more. That's why I like it more, because what I see from Denver is that, yes, Troy Franklin can absolutely be the wide receiver 2 in that offense, but we just saw a game where they are more than comfortable utilizing whatever positional player is going to give them the most bang for the buck to win the game in Marvin Mims, etc. And Troy Franklin had a down week. So when I see that, and I see looking ahead for Denver, where are those matchups going to be? Cortland Sutton is still going to have the lion's share of the targets in this offense. Jalen Coker is going to walk into Teterow is going to get targets. Tommy Tremble, Jatavion Sanders is going to get targets, and then Coker. So I'm looking at a player here.
A list of a quarterback who loves getting sacked.
I'm looking at a player here who's going to be utilized. I would drop him because I see a little bit of upside from Jalen Coker moving forward. Again, both are
the fundamental answer is you got to have someone better out there than Coker. Or do a trade. If you're going to get rid of Franklin, just do a 2-for-1 trade.
Potentially. Do we like Stafford or Nix this week? I think you gotta like Stafford a little bit more, but the projections are really close. They're only about 1 point differential, 0.5 differential between the two. Again, that Stafford to Puka connection is elite. The Stafford to Devontae Adams connection is elite. The Eagles are a team that can be passed on, but how much, what outcome is that going to have? I think it's an interesting play because what we get from the Eagles is that we get limited rushing upside from Bo Nix. So you're relying on Bo Nix as a passer, and Bo Nix can absolutely pass the ball and sling it. Joe, what do you think about that? Who do you have?
I'm going Nix because of the running upside in the game script.
Yeah, Nix has more upside.
Stafford just ices it out.
Nix has more upside than Stafford. I think Stafford has a safe floor.
No, I get that. Stafford definitely has a safer floor. It depends on you build a roster.
Swavey, rank these rest of season. Charbonnet, Jameson Williams, Travis Hunter. I have JMO, then Sharps, then Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter's usage is going to be variable. He's doing exactly what they asked him to do. Jacksonville is in a good place with their record. He's there for fantasy purposes, though. I'm not really interested in starting him. Jameson Williams.
If you're not getting the defensive points, you can't even consider Hunter.
Jameson Williams is sitting there. His target earning is going to be variable from a week-to-week basis, but he has touchdown upside. Charbonnet is going to get about 10 to 16 carries a week. If they're moving the ball well, he has touchdown upside. So it's JMO and Sharps for me because Travis Hunter just doesn't have any touchdown upside.
Yeah, and Charbonnet will have a higher floor. JMO will have a higher ceiling. It all depends on what you need that week.
Yeah. CC 0-4 team has Jacobs on bye, and they're not even projected to hit 100 points. Do y'all think I can get a trade done with K9 straight up? Yeah, I absolutely do think you can.
Go for it. Why not?
K9's starting. He has Jacobs. If you can eat Jacobs bye week, Jacobs' schedule up ahead is going to be great. And you just saw he's going to get usage, guys. I mean, he's Josh Jacobs. He's going to get usage. I have Debo, RJ Harvey as potential throw-ins. I don't like the idea of throwing in Debo because I think Debo does hold a lot of value right now. So I could convince myself to do RJ Harvey, but I do like to put rookie running backs. I do like to tend to keep rookie running backs if they're performing, and RJ Harvey showed that he can perform. So Debo might have more to that guy, but if he's down a running back, he might want RJ Harvey and K9. I would to get Jacobs on my team. Sure. Trade Judkins and Marks for HN and JCM. Swavey, I like Judkins a lot, and I like HN a lot. So then it comes down to, and it's not that I just like them a lot. I like their usage. I like the game scripts.
You can't get rid of Judkins.
And I think that
his usage is only going up now that he's got a rookie quarterback. You can't get rid of Judkins.
When I look at Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and again, this is if you believe that Marks is the flavor of the week and he's going to go back down to 6 touches or whatever, right? Is that if you're trading Marks, you're selling him on his biggest boom game. There's most likely he's not going to reach 27, 29 points again. Okay, most likely. So you're selling him at his most boom game, and you are buying into a player of JCM who hasn't yet had a boom game, who's in a committee with players that he reasonably shouldn't be in a committee with. So I have to ask, is that if you're just doing this to buy HN and you want JCM as a rookie running back to kind of move you to the end of the line, I could see myself wanting to do this. And selling Marks to move into HN, I think, is not a bad call. But do I want to give up Judkins? I don't. So I would try to get HN and see what it costs me to get HN without JCM. Because I don't really see a value right now in his usage moving forward, because you're not going to want to start him right now. But you could easily put Marks and Judkins and start them right now. HN has a juicy matchup this week, though. So he could totally draw 42 points this week. So like that's
what you're going to do is you're going to be buying A-Chain at his most expensive point. Because Miami's about to fall off their cliff. And that's why I don't want the one that you're getting the high point as the most likely.
And Jesse, would I start the Rams defense today? Sure.
I am starting the Rams defense today, Jay.
Sure.
Or Jesse.
There's no reason that unless you have like we said, Giants are a reasonable defense to start against a bad team.
Indy's a good defense this week too.
The problem is with this Rams defense is they could totally disappoint you because they might have a big lead, and divisional games are weird, especially divisional games on Thursday night. So it could be a higher than average scoring game and you can get locked out, but can they make turnovers against Mac Jones? Sure. CMC is always a threat to get a couple of touchdowns though. Trade CMC for James Cook and Rice. Swavey, this is something that I would consider if you believe.
I would do that.
If you believe that CMC is going to get hurt, but also
I do.
Just by volume standpoint, when you look at both of these running backs, okay, in terms of touches, James Cook and Christian McCaffrey are both top 6 on the season in terms of touches. And the reason Christian McCaffrey has such a high usage rate right now is because all of the players around him are hurt. And you have to believe that when all those players come back, his touches will probably normalize to somewhere around 18, 19, 20 touches as they start to get fueled into the season. There's no reason to believe that they would use Cook any differently than they're doing now because they're winning. Maybe if they're winning too much, maybe you could see Ray Davis getting more at the end of the season. But Cook is getting that usage that everybody faded them at the beginning of the season saying, he can't possibly get the same usage again. Well, guess what? He is. And he's getting a touchdown. So if you believe that there's touchdown regression there, fine, I can see that. But I also believe that Rice coming into a situation where he could potentially be that number 1 wide receiver for Patrick Mahomes on a team that doesn't have a rushing attack whatsoever, you are locking yourself into at least a solid 13 to 8 to 14 PPR points from Rice on a weekly basis, plus Cook's upside of 28 points. I think you're going to make up the difference in CMC here, and you have 2 usable players who are more than enough for CMC. Mm-hmm. More than enough. I would do that. What's happening, Nino? And again, everybody, you've heard me say it again. If you didn't hear your question in the chat, if we didn't talk about it yet, we do answer every question here at Local Football Flavor. Feel free to stay with us as we go through all the questions. If you want to join us again and you're busy at work or doing something like that, please feel free to check us on a replay. Nino, start 2 full PPR, K9, Marks, Ellick, Godwin, Higgins, Addison. Okay, again, I like Addison a lot.
I like PPR Addison and Godwin in that group.
I like Addison a lot, full PPR. I think that K9 is very interesting this week, guys. Again, you know what you're playing when you play K9, though. That's what I want to say. You know what you're playing when you play K9. You're getting a low amount. You're getting around 17 total touches, which is a mark that you really, you want to be above that if you're thinking of bell cow running backs, but he's not. The matchup is interesting because of the way that they could utilize him along the outside. I would look at that and I would consider K9 because he does have that bit of explosion. What you can't forget, though, is Godwin had 10 targets last week when he just came back from injury. He only caught 3 or 4 of them. Will that uptick this week? Potentially. I'd keep an eye on Baker Mayfield's injury and see if that's going to continue to bother him over the course of the week. I would lean Addison and K9 with my 3rd option being Godwin and my 4th option being Marks. That's where I'd land on that. Joe, how about yourself?
I'm Addison and Godwin. That's how I'd go about that one. Pretty straightforward in a full PPR.
Would you trade Nix and Mason or Brown for CMC? I don't see why not.
I don't want to buy into CMC.
I do, based off of your team, Jesse, is that we're sitting here, and we've been sitting here for a couple weeks now, staring Mason and Brown in the face and saying, what's going to happen for them? Well,
if the question basically is, let me tell you about it. Even if CMC gets hurt, getting Chase Brown off your team is a win. I mean, that's just a period. So if
I think Nix to do it,
I would give you Nix is worth the risk of CMC not getting hurt. Yeah, so I would do CMC and or Knicks and CMC for Brown.
And knowing your team, you also have also been flirting with the ideas of Jordan Love and Michael Penix, and I think both of those guys, while they don't have as safe of a floor as Bo Nix has, they have the equal amount of ceiling as Bo Nix has. And anytime I can trade a quarterback in for a running back that has a high caliber of touches, I'm going to do that. And I worry about Chase Brown moving forward because unless they go out and trade for a quarterback, which they probably won't, it's probably not going to improve until you get to the very, very end of the season.
Cincinnati notoriously doesn't trade good.
Yeah. Dowdle or Rachaad White this week, Ken? I'm on Rachaad White, but this is interesting because they're going to use Rico Dowdle. I think that's interesting, but I would be on Rachaad White. Trade Woody Marks and Hunter Henry for Travion Henderson and Brock Bowers. All right.
That one I would do.
Let me freeze this conversation just real quick. The usage for Brock Bowers injury is probably more than what it seems.
Oh, it is.
And I would really question I would do this trade for this reason. I think that Travion and Woody's going to get the majority. If you believe Woody Marks is going to get the majority of these carries, maybe you want to keep Woody. But this is the moment to buy Brock Bowers because the first game that Brock Bowers gets a touchdown, Brock Bowers will not be able to be bought anymore. Okay. And Travion Henderson, while he's more risky than Woody Marks, I think right now in terms of a volume perspective, I do think that there's upside there. So would I do this? Yes. But I need to understand that Brock Bowers right now is a scary start. Okay. Even though he's a high value player, he is a scary start right now. And we appreciate everybody in the chat who answers questions for everybody else too. My other starting wide receivers are Ladd and Ted, so who knows what the heck they can do. Yeah, Wumbo. I mean, like Ted could go off. He absolutely could.
He absolutely couldn't too.
I feel safe. Yeah. On my other squad, I lost Bucky and Connor, currently forced to start Woody and DeMarcado, thinking of making a trade, sending Tet for Javonte Williams. Do I do it? Does it get done or do I need to add more? I would try it.
But you're going to need to add more. Javonte Williams is solid.
I would try it. I think Javonte Williams, I don't think that Javonte Williams is a particularly ravishing running back, but he's getting usage. He's getting usage in an offense that is moving the ball, and that's valuable. So if I can move Tet, who I think is also going to be valuable going down the stretch, if you want to move Tet, who is the target earner for his team, I would not be mad at that because when we look at total touches, Javonte Williams on the season ranks 8.
Yep.
On average, he ranks 8. So even with that, knowing that, it is hard to get a starting running back. Now, Miles Sanders got hurt. They're going to probably maybe bring up Jaden Blue from the practice squad. I don't see if they've benched him for 4 straight weeks healthy. I don't see them taking a role from Javonte Williams at this moment. So, and remember, Javonte Williams, one of those games was an OT game. So keep that in mind, but I do like Javonte Williams over Ted there. It's 3 different leagues. Okay, Wumbo. Okay, got you. This guy has CMC from CC here. CMC, Cooks, and JT. Javonte is on his bench, and he has no wide receivers. He's starting Judy and Addison. I think he does that, CC. If he needs a running back, he's absolutely going to not start Javonte Williams. The only reason that I see that as potentially not working out for you is he just says, F it. I don't have to give you a running back and just roll with Judy and Addison moving forward. We see a Jonathan on the deep dive there. Trade Judkins and Woody for Achane and Ja'Cory Krosky. Swavey, we answered this question already. I wouldn't. Knowing you have CMC and Jacobs, though, I still think I'd stick tight with Judkins and Woody if you're 2 flexing. Do you have 2 flex positions or 1 flex position?
Yeah, well, here's what I would do for you then, Woody. If you're sitting in that spot, I would move CMC for a better haul than Achane and Krosky. That if I were in charge of your team, I would want to roll in with the 2 J's, Jacobs and Judkins, for rest of the season. Yeah. Give me CMC essentially at his peak, and go get a stud somewhere else on your roster that you need it. That's how I would look at it. I would move CMC for a mega stud.
And that's fair. That's a fair point to make too.
I love Judkins.
You can move.
It's always going to get better.
We talked about the idea of moving players for mega studs, and that's something that is totally on the table for you at this point.
Which ones are about to get broken?
Bench 1: Sutton, Pollard, ETN, Keenan.
It's got to be Sutton, right? Or Pollard?
No, I think you start Sutton. I said this last week. Yes, the Eagles have a good defense, but they do give up a lot of targets to the wide receiver 1. Okay. Sutton is the highest target earner on this team. He has the potential to go 6 for 80 again with a touchdown. Okay. So I'm not benching Sutton at all. Pollard, again, is a volume play with a bit of a lower floor because it's hard to see. It's hard to walk yourself into the touchdown by Tony Pollard. It's an incredibly good matchup, but it's hard to walk yourself into the touchdown. If you can walk yourself into the touchdown, then you start him. I can't because they have had trouble moving the ball. When it comes to ETN, I think that when you land on ETN, I don't think you can bench ETN because Kansas City has not been a great run defense so far this year. So I think the two players that you have to think about are Pollard and Keenan. Keenan does still have touchdown equity, although he didn't get one last week. If they're moving the ball into the red zone, Keenan's a threat. Pollard, on the other hand, is going to have more yards most likely than Keenan Allen. So the question is, does he catch any passes? Keenan Allen probably has a safe floor of around 8, and Pollard has around 8 too. So which one do you think is going to get the touchdown? I think you can say Keenan Allen probably has a better chance to get a touchdown this week, so I bench Pollard. But if you think Pollard has a better chance to get a touchdown, you bench Keenan.
But it's definitely, I think the answer is Pollard without thinking.
That's fair. What's happening, Nick? Are the Rams defense solid play tonight? Yeah, sure.
No, I'm playing them, so yeah.
But again, we talked about this before, and I was reading the thread today on Reddit that's like, why does everybody think that Thursday night games are weird? Well, Thursday night games are weird because it's hard to quantify how players are going to perform on 4 days rest.
There's always an advantage to the ones at home. It's just historically proven. So, Bob, why don't we do after Jesse here, swing into some of the deep dives from
so everybody in the chat, we do get to all the questions and comments in the chat. We are going to answer Jesse's here, and then we're going to swing into some of the deep dives that we've already queued up for the day. Then we'll get back to the quick hits. If you can't wait and you want to, hop off and then come back, feel free. But we definitely appreciate everybody sticking around, watching us, and all the questions and comments. So after this quick hit here, which running back would you start in order between Judkins, Mason, and Henderson? I think you listed them in the order. I think you listed them in the order that you mentioned them. Again, Mason is going to have a tough matchup, but he's going to get volume. Henderson has an easier matchup, but he doesn't get enough volume. So Judkins is the start because when the offense falters in those overseas games, right, we tend to lean on the running back a little bit more. Mason has had more time to acclimate to the environment over there, so maybe the defense doesn't play as good as it was playing before, and maybe Mason can sneak in an early touchdown. But Xavier Scott there, that could be a problem. I think Mason has a lower floor this week, though, than these other two guys. But Henderson's a tough play when it comes to the volume. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think there's a lot to consider there, but I'd lean Judkins and Mason here on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get to the first deep dive here from Aman. Start 2 running backs in a flex. Monty Amari, is that Sean Tucker, Trey Tucker, Henderson, Shakir? Regardless, it's Monty, guys. Yeah. If you have Monty on your team, you are starting David Montgomery this week. Cincinnati's defense cannot stop the run. You have seen it over and over and over again. There is a very real possibility that there could be 52 points scored by Detroit in this game. Okay? They do not care. Unlike some other coaching staffs, they don't care.
Oh, they want to win by 1 million.
And they will continue to trot out whoever can score touchdowns on that field. You might see Brock Wright score a touchdown this week, guys. That's how many touchdowns that Detroit has the potentiality to score on Cincinnati. They will embarrass them, okay? And Montgomery is going to be part of that. If you have Montgomery and you were thinking about benching him, don't bench him.
No.
He had a hard matchup last week. This matchup is better, and it's great. Amari is a problem to start. Amari has a potentially a great matchup, but you have to consider how Amari has been used in the past. Amari DiMercato has caught passes. He's primarily a pass-catching running back, okay? So when you look and you go in and you say, does he have the potentiality to get volume? Okay, so let's go back and let's look at the game log, right, Joe, from a couple years ago when maybe he had the volume to get. Right. So I'm looking at 20.
That was with a better offensive staff that could get him the ball.
I'm looking at 2024, and I'm going to take the game against Green Bay where they lost 34-13 in October 13th. DiMercato had 4 carries for 25 yards, 6.3 average yards per carry, 5 receptions on 7 targets for 39 yards.
Hey, but before you get through all the stats, I just want to throw this one thing out there.
Yeah, go ahead.
DiMercato he's a speed junkie guy,
but hold on,
ready? You have those speed high tune revved engines, and you put them on a shelf for an off season, 2 off seasons, and 2 seasons, pretty much. They don't always restart.
So I'm getting to that point.
He's lost it.
When we go to 2023, which is 2 years ago now. His highest total carry game was 20 carries for 78 yards. The game after that, he has 13 carries for 58 yards and 1 catch. So if he is running a lot, he's not catching a lot. If he's not running a lot, he's probably catching a little bit more. So what I see it as is that I see him having a floor in a PPR league somewhere in the vein of like 7 points. That would be about, 20 yards on the ground, right? And then you have 3 or 4 catches for about 30, 40 yards, somewhere in there, okay? I think that's a floor that Amari DiMercato can have because of his way he's used. Michael Carter could be a problem. We did have Michael Carter, and this is for all those DFS junkies out there. Michael Carter had a game where he made it, I believe, into the nuts of the Millie Maker lineup. I believe it was last year, where he tore off a couple touchdowns. He believes that he's going to be the starting running back this week in an interview. He says, I'm going to be the starting running back. And when you have a guy with that much bravado, it says, I'm going to be the starting running back. You look at his stats and you say, he's capable of going 13 carries for 70 yards as well. The big game must have come in another year. But, I look at it and I say, against Philly in 2023, he had a touchdown, a reception, 61 yards on the ground. It was nice, and he was cheap. So while I don't think Amari DiMercato is like in your situation is definitely off the board, I think that he doesn't have the ceiling of a guy like Henderson, because Henderson and Amari both have that same kind of thing. And you got to consider, like, Amari DiMercato Tennessee's run defense isn't very good, but maybe it could be better when we think about pass catching running backs. So like, that's something to consider in this discussion. If that's Sean Tucker, I would probably not start Sean Tucker over Amari, and I probably wouldn't start Sean Tucker over Henderson. If it was Trey Tucker, I still probably wouldn't do it because
I don't think it matters.
It's going to be there. Shakir got a touchdown last week, so that's nice. But again, Shakir is not one of those guys with like good high touchdown upside. You could say in a week like this week where they're going to be facing New England, how many targets is he going to get? Is he going to get 4? Is he going to get 8? If you think he's going to get 8, Shakir is the play.
Shakir's the play.
If you think he's going to get 4, DiMercato is the play.
See, okay. To me, this is straightforward. So first of all, Monty and Henderson are the running backs for me.
Yeah.
And Shakir's the flex. So
yeah, and that's fine. And that's what I'm saying. Henderson, I think you do.
It's a higher scoring offense with a better quarterback. To me, that's the end of the discussion.
And that's a fair assessment to make.
Plus, Shakir's higher up on the depth chart of actual pass catching targets.
The only reason why I put Amari ahead of Shakir is that Amari could potentially hit that PPR point that Shakir would hit. Plus, he gets yardage bonuses on the ground when he gets those running back snaps. It's the only reason why I would rank Amari ahead of Shakir in this listing of players. So I'd go Monty Henderson and Amari. But if you believe that Shakir is going to get a touchdown, I think you got to go with Shakir. CC, who do you like more in the flex? Worthy or Judkins? Deep dive. JT and Brees are my running backs, and Pickens and QJ are my wide receivers. Okay.
And QJ's bailing you into some wins, man. That's some good stuff.
So
to me, it's Judkins with no question.
So this is a fun one, right, Joe? Judkins, in the 3 games that he's played, in terms of total touches, is top 11 in the running back department, okay, with 19 total touches. If you then put that out to like wide receivers, etc., he's still top 12 in the league. Puka's the only wide receiver over 10 total touches in a game, right? So you look at it and you say, why would I bench Judkins? What would be the reason that I would bench Judkins? Okay. The only reason that you could reason to bench Judkins is that Xavier Worthy has an incredible matchup against this Jacksonville secondary. But the other thing that you have to ask yourself is, how many targets is Xavier Worthy going to get?
Oh, not many.
Last week he had 8, and he got 2 carries as well, and he was able to get 83 yards, no touchdown. That's a pretty good game for Xavier Worthy. We go back in
game of Xavier Worthy.
We go back into the annals of Xavier Worthy history, and we see his better games have come when he's been able to get a touchdown. Now, will that come this week? I think it's likely that he does get a touchdown this week against Jacksonville. They're going to utilize him a lot. Now, when you look at the projections for this week, right, Joe, is, he's projecting somewhere in that 15-16 range, right? And when you go and you look at a guy like Judkins, again, Judkins is getting volume. And Judkins is projecting around 15-16 points as well. So I think that Judkins, if Cleveland is trotting out a rookie running back in a space where they're going to need to utilize the run a bunch, I think you got to go Judkins just because the volume could be massive this week.
I mean, that's the answer.
The volume could be, he could get 22, 23 touches in this game, guys.
You're going to wake up and have your morning beer, and Judkins is already on to give you 20 points.
Your morning beer. Worthy's going to be a good play this week, though. I'm not scoffing at Xavier Worthy being a good play this week. Xavier Worthy has upside this week. In order for Xavier Worthy to hit 16 points, though, he's going to need 5 to 6 receptions, 80-plus yards, and any other bonuses that you need. Does he have a chance at 100 yards? Sure. Will he get the touchdown? Right? I think Judkins could easily eclipse that 60 to 80-yard mark on 17 carries. And I think he gets a touchdown.
I'm looking at the rest of his roster with Pickens and QJ. I want the floor because QJ is a ceiling play and his floor could be nothing. And that's why I want the floor of Judkins.
And I think both are good plays, but I like Judkins more.
Yep.
Jonathan, 10-team, 3 wide receiver league. QBs are Mahomes. Wide receivers are St. Brown, Sutton, Pickens, Wandale, Iomanor, lost Tyreek. Yeah, I remember that, Jonathan. We were really hyped about Tyreek last week, and then he goes off and breaks his leg. Jackass. Jacobs, Cook, Mason, Sharps, both Arizona running backs, tight ends, Hawkinson and Pitts, IR, Benson, Coker. Any upgrades, any holds? I'm holding Sutton, holding St. Brown. Mahomes is a good quarterback right now. You're holding Pickens. All those guys, I'm not trading off my team. Okay. Then you go to your running backs, Jacobs, Cook, Mason, Sharps, both Arizona running backs. If Mason has a good game this week, I'm trading Mason. I told you guys last week I told you guys last week that I thought that Mason was a trade candidate last week. And I think that he's a good running back. But it's going to be an interesting situation. If I had to trade any of those wide receivers away, I could convince myself that if CeeDee Lamb comes back healthy, that it could eat into the target share for Pickens. And I think that Pickens right now holds a lot of value. He just had a 32-point game. So if I wanted to trade any of those wide receivers, Pickens has the most perceived value. Although Amon-Ra has the most value out of your wide receivers, 32 points out of Pickens, that's a thing you want to capitalize on. Amon-Ra can do it again, and he can do it fairly consistently. Pickens might not be as consistent in doing that. So if I wanted to do that and I wanted to move Pickens and Mason into something, you could. But honestly speaking, I still think losing Tyreek, your team is still fine.
No, it definitely is. John, I would do something like this, and there's going to be a lot of situations because of how many people are hurt. But if you paired Wan'Dale and the perception of what he's about to get in terms of volume and Mason, you could do those two into pretty much any injured player who is a second-round grade. You could go and snag Evans. You can go and get one of the disappointments. You can get Ladd. And I think that putting that with you there is a really big thing. I don't think you're going to be able to get maybe as high as CD, but if the guy is down and out and he needs someone to play, Wan'Dale and Mason are here this week. You get someone who's heavy on the bye week players, and they're heavy on the Packers, for instance. You can snag these types of things. And between Wan'Dale and either Mason or Charbs, hitting the receiver and running back, they're not the worst starts this week. They're going to be flexes for a lot of people, but you get someone who's struggling by injury, you can really nail that home, Jonathan. So that would be an area I would look to upgrade. And then as far as the return, I would want the receiver to be the area that you go to get the receiver. So that was what I would want to pair. Wan'Dale and Mason or Charbs is someone who's feeling the injury in both departments. And even if you get an injured asset in return, you have the ability to sit on it. So that's how I would look at it. You get someone who's got an injured player, someone who can't wait for Rice to come back, something like that.
Rice is a good target for your team, Jonathan. Knowing you have Patrick Mahomes, Rashee Rice is a good target for your team. His buy window, it's going to start to cost you a little bit more. The closer and closer it's coming, it's going to cost you a little bit more. I think that Rice, you could easily turn Charbs or Mason right now into Rice. There's enough running back injuries that you could do that. You could absolutely do something like that. So that's something that I would consider doing, is trying to go out and get Rashee Rice. But I think your running back core is solid with all the injuries going around. I think it's something to continue to look at. If you just dropped a question in the chat, guys, we are going back into the quick hits.
We're going to hit quick hit fire mode, man. We're going to.
We will answer all questions. If you don't hear your question right now, and you want to wait, listen to all the things. Maybe we'll answer your question as we go. But we do get to all the questions. Feel free to like, follow, subscribe. Make sure you come back and watch the replay if you didn't hear your answer right away. Juwan Johnson or Waller rest of the season quick hits. I think you got to be on Waller right now. And here's why I say that. Juwan Johnson, his window right now is closing. He had a huge target share, but his window is closing because they're getting back Foster Moreau and they're getting back Taysom Hill. It's going to eat into the targets a little bit. Waller is not going to have anybody eating into his targets outside of maybe Nick Westbrook-Akine or Devin Achane. So I think it's got to be Waller the rest of the season, as much as it pains me to say that. TS, playing Monty. You're playing Monty. Regardless of PPR upside for Rachaad White, Monty is a potential smash spot this week. I would try to find a way to put both of these players in my lineup, though. That's what I do. I try to find a way to get both of them in my lineup.
Jonathan, that's called collusion. Trading BTJ and Bowers for Kamara.
That's rough.
That is collusion.
I would have vetoed that one. Slayton or Debo for a big boom play this week. I'm watching the injury to Debo. Debo's back at practice now. He was dealing with a heel injury. Jane Daniels is back. I think
it's
with
James Slayton, though, there's such a void of production that just became available that Slayton has a bigger chance to jump into. Debo's probably already hit his ceiling.
I think Debo is likely to get a touchdown if Terry McLaurin's out. So I like Debo, but I do see upside with Slayton this week. Slayton has, in the past, had a couple of good games that were fantasy relevant. And keep in mind that those were with different quarterbacks. And he's going to see a lot of volume this week. Just want to double check on one thing because he did have a really usable game. Yeah. Last year against Seattle, he had 8 receptions on 11 targets, 122 yards, and a touchdown. That is his upside. Debo's upside comes through the running game as well. I would think about both, but I'd land on Debo probably. If you don't want the injury, though, Slayton's a good play because he's not injured. He's not dealing with anything. He's not going to get taken out of the game. So
Hank, my point for to answer this question between Ollie and the 2 Arizona running backs, I'm getting rid of Amara.
I'm getting rid of DeMarcado to pick up a kicker. Ollie Gordon will have upside in this offense, and I think I like Michael Carter better this week, like I said.
Yep.
Ladd is the worst type of player where he's too good to take out, but too bad to want to keep in. He's the A.J. Brown, guys. I told you about how I'm stomaching through another year of A.J. Brown because, I seem to like that pain. It's masochistic, but you play him, you hope he has a good game, and you just roll. You just pretend he's your wide receiver 3. You slide him down to your wide receiver 3 spot. That's what I would do to A.J. Brown. He's no longer able to be in that number 1 wide receiver spot. He goes down. Would you trade Pickens and Mason for Quentin Johnston and Godwin?
Ooh, now we're talking consideration. I'd probably still stick with Mason because of how rare the running backs are. But I like where your head's at.
I do like where your head's at, but
I'm a running back whore by trade. You guys know that.
But knowing your team, you don't need QJ and you don't need Godwin. The way your team is built, you don't need them.
Jonathan, you'd be better off doing a 2-for-1 and go getting a stud.
Yeah. Would you trade Nico and Mason for Hall and Sutton?
No.
This is a trade. Joe will stay an immediate no because Nico has that 30-point
Nico
upside. But I like Hall better than Mason. Hall's usage.
Sure.
I like it better than Mason.
Player in that trade.
Nico is the best player in that trade, but this is not an immediate no. This is a fair enough trade.
Nico's on my never trade list, so for me, it's an immediate.
I get it. I think it's worth considering, knowing how much you're struggling at running back right now, Jesse. If you think Hall over the rest of the season has better upside, I think I would consider it at the very least.
I think it's too close to the same.
I love the kicker questions. It reminds me to add a kicker back to my team after I drop them for the waiver guys. Absolutely. You're welcome, CC. That's the thing. Kicker questions always are good because it's like I was starting a kicker and I was like, I got to get him out of my lineup.
Strong disagree. We don't need to talk about kickers.
I'm starting JJ, Jason, and flexing Buka. Would you keep Buka or should I target London, Rice, or Chase? I'm 4-0. Alejandro, you're 4-0 with Buka. I think what we need to understand about Buka is that Buka has earned his fair share of targets in this offense.
But if you think you can get Jamar Chase for Buka and that guy's that down on him, you make the call.
I don't want Jamar. I don't want Jamar right now with Brown.
Oh, I do.
I don't. But if you could propose it and see if it gets accepted, Jamar is still Jamar Chase. And if they go out and get a quarterback, he's going to be a relevant guy.
Don't. He's still Jamar.
London, Joe will never – here's the thing, Alejandro. Joe will never tell you to trade into Drake London.
Nope.
Drake London will have his ups and downs weeks. But I think that Drake London being the focal point of that offense in terms of the passing game outside of Bijan Robinson, I would at least consider trading Igbuka for Drake London. I like Igbuka a lot, but if I'm going to go shoot for the moon, I'd shoot for Chase, even though I don't like that offense right now. But I would consider London. If you're worried about Igbuka's target share when Mike Evans comes back and assumedly is healthy with a healthy Bucky Irving, and you're worried about that going forward, in this order, I would target London, then Chase, then Rice. And it's a good week to target London because he's on his bye.
No, that's true too. He's cheap. He's cheap as
you get him for the rest of the season, and that's why I think London has the advantage over those other guys. I know CMC is catching a ton of balls here, Wumbo said, but he's at 3.2 yards per carry. He's going to smash into the O-line soon and just stay down. I agree with that. I do agree with that. And like I said, when all those players come back, his touches are going to come down, not go up. They're going to come down. And so that's something to consider. Trade Tet for BTJ, Swavey. I'd consider it.
These are two overrated players that are never going to move the needle.
I think both can move the needle. They just need to get on the right page with these offenses. And right now, BTJ seems to be on the better offense that's moving the ball.
He is. That part ain't debatable.
So I think I'm on BTJ because all things the same, they're both getting massive targets. So I think BTJ would be the player that I would like over Ted. I have Hill. Jad says, welcome, Jad. I have Hill and Metcalf, and Hill out for the season and DK on bye this week. I was going to start Jennings on San Francisco, but he's out. Should I play Shaheed or Bourne, who I picked up off the waiver wire? So here's the thing about Shaheed, guys, is Rashid is one of those guys we were talking about in the offseason that, was going to benefit from lack of target share. He's right around that kind of those Ladd McConkey target share numbers, 9, 5, 6, 5. He has 174 yards on the season, 1 touchdown. Does he have upside this week? Yeah, he has upside this week. And I think that if you think Spencer Rattler can get to 16 fantasy points, that's probably going to come with a decent long distance touchdown. You could talk yourself into
this one's easy for me. I think that Rattling Gun's getting benched this week, and he's going to be on his back a lot. And give me the better quarterback. Go with Bourne.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Ricky, welcome. I panicked and I picked up both Cardinals running backs. Which one should I start this week, or Pollard?
Carter.
If I'm starting one of the running backs, like I said, it's Carter, right? If you want pure volume, but here's the thing, guys. Arizona likes to run the ball. These running backs, Carter especially, is going to get a good amount of usage. We saw Trey Benson. We saw what happened.
There's going to be at least one fumbled handoff in that backfield.
Just sent out a trade to Jamar owners for 2 for 1. MHJ and Worthy too much. Quick hit. He only has Garrett Wilson. To be honest with you, I like Garrett Wilson at this point in time in the season better than Jamar Chase. So
that's
is it
insane? But no, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Worthy for Jamar Chase.
No, it's fair.
Not too much.
That's fair. Would I want to give both of them up for an underperforming Jamar right now? If I saw,
I'm buying into Jamar. I like where you're at, CC.
I have Jacoby, who I can cancel and send instead of Worthy. If you guys think it's a better play. Here's the thing about Jacoby. Jacoby is earning targets, but it's going to be up and down until this offense can piece together what their identity is. And it seemed like last week against a very porous defense, they do show that they like to run the ball. Jacoby Myers is going to be a target earner, but you have to question how
Jacoby also has a better playoff run for you than Kansas City does. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
You're welcome, Swavey. Absolutely. We're here to help. Wumbo, with Nico being banged up with the possibility of him losing time, how much do you value London over him? I value London over him. I'm just going to flat out say it. You guys know me. I love Nico. I said to you all, Nico and Puka were my favorite 2 wide receivers, and I would take them as early as pick number 1 overall this year. I've said it. Those 2 guys were my favorite wide receivers walking into this season. I did it in best ball. The Nico shares aren't doing well.
I still think Nico's going to pan out. Houston's going to figure out that offensive line.
He will pan out. And this is the thing. This is the thing that you want to kind of look at, right? Is that when you look at targets per game, okay? When you look at targets per game and you're looking at wide receivers overall, and we're searching for Nico, right? So we look for Nico. Nico's sitting there at when you combine running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, he's sitting around 7 targets per game, 5, 9, 11, 6. The reason why he wasn't hyper-targeted in this game was because they had a lead. He didn't have to be. So when you look at this stats, if you believe that Houston will hold more leads towards the end of the season or as the season goes on, Nico would be a guy that I would sell.
And here's my argument for why I think Houston is going to be in a good shape, and they're still going to throw to Minko or Nico.
They're still going to throw to him. There's no doubt about that.
Houston completely built their offensive line. And historical league shows it takes till week 6 till a new offensive line of 3 or more members gels together. So we're about to hit that point this week, next week, where their line's going to start looking good. They're playing a very soft line against Baltimore. I've never said that before, but it's true.
But here's the thing, Joe.
I think you're going to have a big game out of all of Houston.
I don't want to make this into a deep dive, but I do want to say Drake London right now, just as he was last year, is top 6 in targets per game.
And that's fine.
Okay.
I still don't want him.
I like that. CMC for Puka, but doubt anyone would take that. LOL. Some people might.
Yeah, it depends. Depends how bad their running back situation is.
You could try it.
I definitely. It's. You're not going to get laughed out of the room trying it.
I'm on the Rams D tonight, Ricky. The Bills D isn't very good.
No, it's not.
Smooth. Welcome. Start Henderson or Michael Carter in the flex full PPR.
Neither.
I'm starting Michael Carter and Travion because of my Bucky and Pearsall injury. So
I think you have to go Carter though, because
I am starting both.
They should win that game.
Oh, that was Sean Tucker. Yeah, I'm not starting Sean Tucker this week, although he's a very nice speculative ad. He did show that he could run for 3 touchdowns on 147 yards a couple years, last year. I do think Diggs is a good play this week. I'm on. It's okay. We're all struggling here.
We're going to get you there, man.
Michael, what's happening? Herbert versus the Commanders, Daniel Jones versus the Raiders, or May versus the Bills. Thanks. Okay, this is going to be a weird answer. Joe isn't going to like it, but I'm on Drake May.
I knew you were going to say that. It's a bad defense, and I get that there. But so is the Raiders. And
it's true.
I like Indiana Jones. I am on it. It's where I'm at. The interesting one there is, quite frankly, all 3 of those defenses are really bad. Just the reality of it. And I think Jones gives you the most chance of running one in.
So the only so this is the only thing, right, for Daniel Jones, is that the Raiders are not very good at stopping the run either. And Jonathan Taylor is one of the best, if not top 2, top 3 running back.
Yeah, but they're treating it like varsity blues and not letting the running back take it in the end zone. That's
Herbert, and not to say, and not to besmirch Herbert or whatever, but Herbert has upside because this defense isn't that great, and they can be. You can capitalize on it with a good passing team, but Omarion Hampton will be utilized as well. I think the player that has the most upside out of that grouping is Drake May because their running back situation isn't as settled as the other 2.
That's fair too.
Darth, good to see you, Darth. Would y'all trade away Sutton for Brees? If I needed running back help, sure.
Yeah, and that's
if I needed running back help, sure.
Pretty. I would do that. I would.
And we answer all questions, guys. So if you haven't seen your answer to the question yet, we will get to it. Do not worry about it. Feel free to stick with us. Adrian, nice to see you. I was offered Quentin Johnston for Devonta Smith and Dobbins. My squad: Jalen Hurts, CMC, Bucky, Justin Jefferson, McConkey, Devonta Smith, Kelsey. Flex is Breece Hall, Omarion Hampton. The bench is Dobbins, Downs, Jennings, Olave, Scadaboo, Franklin, White. Personally, I would want to find a way to not have to start Devonta Smith on a weekly basis.
And I think you there.
I think that way is already on your team in Chris Olave. What I would do is I don't think, while I think from a statistical standpoint,
Adrian, I do that.
I think this is a fair trade. I think it's a fair trade. Is it a trade? Do I want to lose Dobbins though? Because this week Breece is going into your flex because Bucky's most likely not playing. Then you put Omarion Hampton into your flex. You have the wiggle room to get rid of Dobbins, and you have Scadaboo.
I'm doing that because you're also starting White.
But I don't like the idea of owning both McConkey and Quentin Johnston.
I'll say I'm fine with that.
I would probably do it, but I would see what my options are. The Sutton trade, Breece has no competition now and will get 80% of the carries. They just brought in Khalil Herbert, which is a non-issue.
Total non-issue.
When I drafted in my 14-team league, Judkins wasn't even in the top 300 due to a bug or something. You had to search for him. 201st overall in the 15th round. We talked to you guys in best ball.
Thought he wasn't signed yet, so people
remember, guys, in best ball, when that suspension came out, I did say, and I didn't do it enough. I didn't do it as enough as I wanted to, but I did tell you guys that was the time to buy Judkins at value.
I did a lot.
Right. And so he's finally paying off now for people that did trust the process there. Swavey, trade CMC and Travis Hunter for James Cook and Rashee Rice. I think you could do – that seems like the guy trying to even it out.
Yeah, but I like getting Cook and Rice.
I do like getting Cook and Rice, but I think it would be fair enough that you could just move CMC for Cook and Rice. But if he wanted Travis Hunter, I don't have a problem giving up Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
I see the deep dive here, Jesse. We will get to that. Ryan, what's happening? I need help. Do I trade Chase Brown for Brian Thomas Jr.? Yeah. If you need a wide receiver, yes.
You need to get Chase Brown off your team. You just do whatever you can get for him.
I would.
Go for a box of donuts.
Jay, I have Puka, Igbuka, Hampton, Etienne, Sutton, Henderson, Swift, Shaheed. Love that. Who do I trade for an elite running back 1, or should I be patient with this skill group? I think you already have an elite running back 1.
It's Hampton.
It's Omari and Hampton. Etienne is a guy that you can move. If you want to pair up Etienne and Sutton to go after somebody that you trust.
But you got to get rid of Swift soon, though, because he's on a declining return nonstop.
I think a guy you can target with these assets, Jay, would be a guy like James Cook. He's going to be hard to get, but if you wanted to, you could probably move a combination of 2 or 3 of those guys to at least get the conversation going for James Cook. When I look at other running backs that you might want to target,
a combination of that to get to James Cook. What are you going to do? Etienne, Swift, and Shaheed to try to get there?
No, I'm saying you might have to move Igbuka in that trade. So it'd be Igbuka and Etienne.
I don't want to move Igbuka. I don't want to move the first 3 at all of his team. I look for someone more like Tyler Warren because it's his bye week. You do a Swift's.
This is going to sound
Swift and Etienne for that.
This is going to sound weird, Jay, but if you're worried about Swift, this is a good time to buy Javonte Williams.
Yeah,
not an elite RB1, but it's the time to buy. We appreciate it, Mega. Absolutely. I have quite a few questions. We'll get to all of them. Mega, full PPR, sit 1. I'm probably. This is a gross answer. This is going to be
How gross you getting?
This is going to be a very gross answer. And I hate it with all my heart. I could convince myself.
No, you can't.
And I'm not going to do it. I'm probably benching Mims out of this group of players. Yeah. Mims is the guy I'm benching. But there's a conversation that you can walk yourself into that Jamar Chase might be the guy you bench. You can't.
Not a chance.
You can't.
The Mims are both getting benched before Jamar.
But I'm benching Mims. But you can. All these other guys have target upside. Right? I also have CD Lamb on IR and 12 team. We've all been hit by the injury bug. It's terrible. Oh, yeah. Change that to full PPR start.
It's all good. It keeps it the same. Mims doesn't get enough volume.
So if I'm starting, who I'm starting there, it's JSN and Quentin Johnston for sure. Those are the start 3 for sure. Then you have a question of Olave or Jamar or Slayton and Jamar, right?
First off,
is out of it though.
Stop saying Jamar. You're not benching Jamar.
I'll get lambasted for it, sure, but I mean, like, he's not a good play right now. It's just not.
They will figure it out.
Start Kyler or Herbert. Herbert. Kyler will only reach his upside if he rushes in 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And that's possible against Tennessee's defense, but it's not probable.
Dude, do you just hate Woody Marks? Like, yes, if you can get AJ Brown for him,
and here's the thing I want to say about AJ Brown. He's gonna have bad games, he's gonna have good games, but this all comes with Jalen Hurts. You have to understand Jalen is that if they're passing the ball 28 times a game, AJ Brown's gonna look better. If they're passing the ball 19 times a game, AJ Brown's gonna look like shit. Okay, so Woody Marks, if I could turn Woody Marks' 27 points from last week on DK into AJ Brown, even if I thought Woody Marks is going to be a tremendous asset the rest of the season, I'd still do that because AJ Brown still has the upside that Woody Marks does. The only problem is AJ Brown is just frustrating to own. He's one of those players similar to Ladd McConkey right now. You can't take out, but you don't want to keep in.
That's right. So we're going to do a deep dive because Bob's going to take you home from here because I'm going to have to bail. Who would you start between Hendy, Godwin, Rico Dowdle, already starting Puka? So in this case, I'm going Godwin. And the reason I'm going Godwin, Jesse, is week back from returning from the injury. Evans is still out. And I have no concern playing both Tampa receivers. I'm not feared about that at all. I don't want to play Henderson until he proves it. And Rico Dowdle, I mean, you would have to go out of your way to convince me to play him. I didn't like him in Dallas. I certainly do not like him in Carolina. So for me, I know that that's a deep dive, but it's pretty easy in my world for Godwin.
So
I love you all. See you Monday.
Here's how I feel about this. This is how I feel about this one, Jesse, is that if I'm sitting there and I am thinking about which one of these guys to start, Godwin is going to get targets, and they're going to be pretty valuable targets, okay? Now, if you're starting both Puka and Godwin, you're expecting Baker Mayfield to probably throw for 300 yards. If you don't expect Baker Mayfield to throw for 300 yards or somewhere up past 275, 285, I don't think you can start both of the wide receivers. As it goes for Henderson, you know how I have this love-hate relationship for Henderson. The volume is the thing that we're going to watch for. But is the volume going to be there against Buffalo where they're going to have to keep matching and probably getting point for point for point for point? He can have touchdown upside, but it's a very problematic touchdown upside. So I think for me, if Chuba is playing, I would probably play Godwin because I do think Baker Mayfield has that plus 275 upside, especially with Bucky Irving not playing. But when I look at Dowdle is really interesting, and it's going to feel like a really weird and gross play. But you're just going back through the numbers. And again, this happened while he was on Dallas. He is totally able to get and sustain 22 plus carries in a game. We already see that the Carolina Panthers are showing that they want to at least run the ball a decent amount. We see in a game, both passing and running, that the Carolina Panthers are upwards of 23, 24 total touches to running backs in those games that they have played so far on average, okay, which takes you up to that CMC number. Without Chuba Hubbard, you got to think that Trevor Etienne is going to eat a little bit into the role, but Rico Dowdle has proven that he's already capable of doing that. Their line isn't that bad, and the matchup isn't terrible, okay? Like you look at it and you say, all right, well, Miami just let up a good amount of rushing to the Jets, and Chuba, has a good matchup. If Chuba's playing, he's going to get around 13 to 16 points. You plug that in, Rico Dowdle is a good enough rusher that he can absolutely take over that role. So if Chuba can't go, I'm on Rico. You heard why Joe was on Dowdle. But if Chuba's playing, of course he's not going to get the full complement of snaps, but I do see a picture. I do see a window where Carolina can beat Miami. And I do see a window where Rico Dowdle could ice the game and get 22 total touches in that game. I could be wrong, but the stats show that he can absolutely reach that goal. So for that reason, I think if Chuba's out, I'm playing Dowdle. If Chuba's in, I'm still thinking about Dowdle, but I'd probably land on Godwin. And Henderson's out because he's not getting the volume. He is explosive with his volume, but he's not getting it. So I don't think that I could buy into that when the other two guys are slated to get volume. All right, guys, we're gonna jump back into the quick hits here, and we do answer all of the questions here. So if you haven't heard your answer to the question, feel free to stick around, listen. You might get some valuable advice from other people, from us. If you don't have time and you need to go, feel free to check back into the chat. We do answer every question, so feel free to watch us on replay. So Swavey, trade CMC, JMO, and Travis Hunter for Bijan and Ladd. You will never realistically hear me say to not get Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson is one of those players that when we look at touches, he's in the top 7. CMC obviously number 1. Bijan has 82 total touches. 100 is what CMC has, so obviously that's crazy. He has a max of around 25 touches. So when I look at targets, Bijan's even being targeted in the, as a running back out of the backfield, right? 7 targets, 5 targets, 6 targets, 5 targets. So when I look at this and I say, okay, well, if Michael Penix is doing well, which is totally within his possibility, I definitely want to get into Bijan. I see Ladd and JMO right here, similar discussion points, right? JMO is one of those guys that's a very high ceiling play. Ladd is not a high ceiling play. So right now, talking about it, Travis Hunter's kind of like that add-in for you, and I totally see that. I want Bijan. So if I have to give up CMC to get into Bijan, I would. Similar, if I can trade CMC and Travis Hunter for JT and George Pickens, I would. Because you see that last week, JT would have had another touchdown. He had a 52-yard touchdown called back because of Adonai Mitchell. This trade right here, I think, is better because you're not giving up JMO. You still get his weekly high upside, and you're getting a player that is easily one of those guys that is also in the top 5 of total touches. Jonathan Taylor, 4 games, has 22 touches per game on average. Okay? Absolute elite upside. Both of those running backs have absolute elite upside. The only thing that you have to worry about with Jonathan Taylor, however, is that Daniel Jones has the potential to get his rushing touchdowns if they were to get to the 1-yard line, 2-yard line. I like this trade better because I think that Pickens is a good return, but I do like Bijan overall out of all of those running backs. Derek, pick one to flex. Mason, Waller, Michael Carter, Dowdle, Pacheco, tight end bonus, 1 PPR. So if you're getting the tight end bonus, knowing that they're down on pass catchers, this is not recency bias though, right? I'm not saying that I'm starting Waller because he got the touchdowns. What I'm saying is with Tyreek Hill hurt, okay, they are going to want to utilize Waller more. Those touches could absolutely go to Devin Achane, okay? But if you are getting bonus points in your league, Darren Waller has high upside in a game where he should be capable of getting touchdowns, okay? So I'm not going to write that off. I like Waller out of those options for you. I think that Dowdle is interesting. Again, like I said, if Dowdle gets the full complement of snaps, I could easily start Dowdle. Michael Carter is interesting as well. But if I would probably start Dowdle over Michael Carter in that situation. And Mason is probably on my bench because, again, he's starting in that early game. For some people, Mason works. For your team, I don't think he works like that. I like Waller because of your bonus points, but I would also consider Dowdle. Pacheco's not even on the radar. It would be cool to start all those wide receivers, wouldn't it, Alejandro? If I take Pickens and Mason for Godwin and QJ, maybe I can take QJ and another piece for top wide receiver. Jonathan, that's kind of, QJ's performing as a top wide receiver right now. So, if you have your eye on a J. Jeff, or you have your eye on a Amon Ra, or if you have your eye on a Nico, QJ's going to definitely get you that. Pickens could potentially get you that now too. That's why I say it's important to try to shop around. Recon, I traded away BTJ for Ladd and ETN. I'm 1-3, but JD is back. Here's my squad. I don't mind this. Remember, we talked about potentially buying low on Ladd given the right situation. Swavey, you had the trade there. Like I said, it's a good trade. I like Jonathan Taylor in there as well. But, yeah, I mean, Swavey, either one of those trades that you had for Bijan and Ladd or for JT and George Pickens, I think it's worth it. It comes down to who do you think rest of the season has better upside. For your question here, for your comment here, Recon, I think that it's fine to go out and get Ladd and ETN. Do I like ETN long-term? Not really, but everybody needs running backs, man. Everybody needs running backs. So I was under the impression last time I checked, and like I said, I checked at 3:00. It says 5 hours ago, Debo returned to practice. It said he was practicing Thursday, and this is from Fantasy Pros. So if he is not playing, that's a problem for me. Mega, I have Hubbard starting and no bench running backs. It doesn't look like Chuba will play full PPR. Pick my least worst option to sub in for him. Justice Hill. Justice Hill is your least worst option, Mega, because Justice Hill has the potential to get volume if they do fall behind. Okay, you go in and you look at Justice Hill. Justice Hill had a good game last week, or a good enough game last week that you're looking at the potential volume that he could get, right, is that he got 29 points last week, 3 carries for 76 yards, 5 receptions on 6 targets. He got some kick return yards. He's going to make an impact. Derrick Henry without Lamar Jackson may not make an impact. Trevor Etienne, I talked about him earlier when we were talking about Rico Dowdle, could make an impact, and I don't think Ford does, and I don't think Singletary does, even with Cam Skattebo there. If Cam Skattebo were to get hurt, Singletary would take over a role. I think the answers here is Justice Hill because he has that receiving upside. But Terry being ruled out isn't a surprise for me. Go pick up Luke McCaffrey. If both of these wide receivers aren't playing, Luke McCaffrey is going to be in for a good game. I cannot get Monty and White into the lineups. The running backs are Etienne and Kamara. Great matchup for Kamara. Okay, that's fair. I'm still on Monty, TS. Still on Monty. Can you both give your best pick or prop for tonight's game? So Mega, sorry Joe didn't see this one before he popped off and left. I think when I look at tonight's game specifically, let me take a look at tonight's game because I have up all my stuff about specifically through Thursday through Monday. I think it's reasonable that Puka probably gets over 8 receptions. I'm not sure what the line is on that right now. CMC over, whatever his yardage plus, let me take a look at the props. Joe had all the props on his computer, so I gotta look up the props tonight. Game props Thursday night football. All right, let me get to it. Best props Thursday night prop picks. All right, we're just gonna pull this up. All right, so where are we at? Come on, where's this at? All right, sorry guys, I will get to that. Here we go. All right, primetime bets, prop bets. I'm just gonna say, I think that whatever CMC's over for usage is, I'm taking it. If I'm taking the receptions over, I'm going to do that as well. And same with Puka. I think Puka over on the receptions too is probably a smart idea. I think Puka's going to get 100 yards as well. So that's who I'd have. If I'm going anytime touchdown score, it's probably going to be Devontae Adams. If I'm going anytime touchdown score, and if that's a good plus bet for me, I'm probably going Devontae Adams. CMC is probably going to return negative on that, so I'm probably not going to do that. But he is going to score a touchdown. Recon, your team was Jane Daniels, K9, ETN, Nico Ladd, Ingram, Addison. I have Dak and Daniel Jones on the bench too. I also have RJ Harvey, Ridley, and Sharps. Ridley's just being disappointing right now. I love that Jordan Addison is in your lineup. We got to find a way to get Ingram and do something about that. Would you drop DeMarcado for Miller or B-Rob? I'd pick up Miller, to be honest with you, Jesse. I know you just dropped him, but I'd pick him right back up. Okay. The only thing that, again, DeMarcado can have a good enough game. I do think that he's probably going to end up at 7 or 8 points, buoyed up by the receptions. I don't know where he gets a touchdown. Miller showed out pretty good. I think that B-Rob right now isn't a guy that I'm picking up right now, but if you believe CMC has a chance to get hurt, sure, he could have a great game. Spencer Schrader to the moon, absolutely. When you're looking at kickers, Indianapolis's kicker, absolutely. Number 1 in many people's books right now. It's good that you're 4-0. Mason or Carter or Dowdle this week, different league. So if I'm looking at this in a different league, like I said, if Dowdle gets the full complement of snaps, I do like Dowdle a lot because Trevor Etienne is going to have a role, but it's hard to see how his rookie role will be when he hasn't really had a role most of the season. Mason, again, they're facing off against a good Cleveland Browns defense. But like I said earlier, Mason's going to have to pop one in early before the Browns defense starts to catch up, right? They also could end up icing the game, but Carson Wentz is not guaranteed to perform really well, and the Browns could win that game against Minnesota by playing good defensively. And Joe's talked about how the Browns could be a good defense this week. So if it comes down to, and the reason why I'm holding out on Mason too is that game's at 9:30 in the morning here, East Coast time. I want to know if Chuba's playing or not, because if Chuba's not playing, I am starting Rico Dowdle out of that grouping of players. If I have to miss out on Mason, I think Mason and Carter could project decently close to one another, depending upon how those game scripts go. Powered right through it. I know I did. Tet or Keenan Allen this week. So Derek, I think that Tet is, like I said, I we've been talking about Tet for a decently long time. Tet is one of those players that when you look at his target share, the target share for Tet is really good. And he projects well every week. This is a matchup that he should smash in. Okay. Now, Keenan Allen, his projection is, all dependent upon the touchdown. If you think that he's going to get the touchdown against Washington this week, you can put Keenan Allen in because it's harder to project for Tet to get the touchdown. I think Tet does get the touchdown this week, and I think that makes him a better play with the amount of targets that he had, with the amount of the snapshot he has. He's playing almost all the time. Keenan Allen is not. So you're having more opportunities for Tet to do well. Okay. Igbuka. So Jay, Joe will tell you don't trade for Saquon. Okay. There are many reasons and many people out there that tell you don't trade for Saquon. And we might be in for a year where Saquon isn't what he did last year. But I will say this. I have asked many league mates in my league, especially the guys that have Saquon Barkley. I'm like, if I pair Igbuka, what running back's going to get it done? And ETN and Igbuka is going to feel like a slap in the face for some people. For other people that are worried about wide receiver, maybe they just lost Malik Neighbors, maybe they just lost Tyreek Hill. I think this is your trade that sparks conversation and sparks interest. Saquon Barkley can have a 30-point game. We know this. How will that happen? Will he get injured? What will happen? I think it's worth it to think about. I like doing something like this. Yeah, out of all those guys that are affordable right now, Saquon Barkley, Brock Bowers, those guys are affordable right now, and they potentially won't be in 2 or 3 weeks from now. Again, they could get injured. All this stuff could happen. We talked last week about Tyreek Hill, and boom, he gets injured, right? So we look at it and we say, okay, this has upside. Because, like we said, I think Igbuka is locked into targets, but Igbuka, when they come back, Saquon Barkley's locked in. He's always locked in. Or do I trade Sutton, Travion, Shaheed for Saquon? Sutton, Travion, and Shaheed will not get you Saquon Barkley. Travion, Sutton, and Shaheed won't get you Saquon Barkley. Sutton and Travion might get you Jacobs. Sutton and ETN will definitely get you Jacobs. Sutton and ETN will definitely get you Jacobs. You're welcome, Jay. Mega Break. No worries, man. Don't worry about it. I traded away Jonathan Taylor, Sutton, and Trevion Henderson for Jacobs, JSN, and Herbert. I have Lamar, but I needed a quarterback with Lamar's hamstring situation. Did I give up too much? No, I don't think you gave up too much. Jesse, we'll talk about Nico in a minute. I don't think you gave up too much. Both of those running backs have high touchdown upside on a week-to-week basis. When we look at the leaders in touches through the first 4 weeks of the season, Jacobs and Taylor are tied at 90 total touches. They can max out super high, okay? Now, JT and Jacobs will have great games, and they will have games where their quarterbacks aren't going to target them and aren't going to get JT has gotten a couple more receptions than Jacobs, I believe. When it looks at Sutton, I think JSN and Sutton, they are basically, in terms of weekly upside, have similar weekly upside pending matchups, right? They're the number one on the team, the number one target earners on their team. And then you flip Travion for Herbert. Herbert has great upside on a week-to-week basis, guys. He did lose Joe Alt, so that's something to be concerned about. But again, they have a running game now. The running game looks good. I'm curious how the injury to Joe Alt will turn out. But I think all said and done, you you paid Travion Henderson into getting Herbert. That's how I feel like you did what you did. And I don't think that is terrible. Usually I wouldn't trade a running back for or for a quarterback, but Lamar's going to be on the shelf for a couple weeks. So I think that's smart. Quick hit might sound crazy, but trade Bowers and Jamar for Gibbs. Do you think it'll be a regret? Sean, when we live our life in regrets, we miss 100% of the chances that we don't take. Okay. Couple of things. Joe will tell you not to trade Jamar. Right. And I do think it's a time to buy Brock Bowers. If your team can handle it, sure. If you don't believe Jamar is going to put up a 22-point game again the rest of the season, sure, because Gibbs will. Okay? So, again, this is Thursday, and this is all pending health and everything for every single player in the league. But on its own, yes, this is a lot to give up. Is it the right value for Gibbs right now? Probably in name value, yeah. This is a good value. You can't swap Jace 1-for-1 for Gibbs right now. Gibbs is elite, right? So I think right now, would I do this to get into Gibbs? If I needed a running back, I'd try to first target Cook, Jacobs. Those would be guys that I'd try to target first, okay? Then I would see how much it costs me to get Javonte and Kyron. Then I'd see how much it cost me to get Omarion, again, pending the Joe Alt injury. I would see what that cost is first. Then I would think about doing this, right? Because David Montgomery's still there, okay? Gibbs has 30-point upside on a weekly basis. Bowers and Jamar don't have that right now. You're getting the best player with the best upside right now. Nico is healthy, right? He is healthy right now, but he has been dealing with this knee injury for a couple of weeks now. He has turned out a full practice, so he's a go for this week. But that doesn't mean that he's going to continue to be a go, and that's kind of like the hesitation there. It's good to see you, man. Again, if you just left a comment in the chat or you're waiting for us to answer you, we always answer you. Joe had to go out. If you left a comment in the chat, we answer every question in the chat, so feel free to leave it there. If you need to go grocery shopping or whatever, come back and watch the show. We answer every comment. Feel free to watch the whole entire show. You might get an answer that you might not have thought about. Non-PPR, start one quarterback. Kyler Murray or Daniel Jones need upside. Playing against Josh Allen this week. Both of these quarterbacks have upside. We buy. I don't really like either of these quarterbacks this week because I think that the matchups could dictate that they could, feature those running backs a little bit more. Joe likes Daniel Jones. He will tell you he likes Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has upside. I think that Kyler Murray is kind of fool's gold this week. Okay? So I'd be on Daniel Jones over Kyler Murray, and this is coming from a guy who really does like Kyler Murray. The projections aren't far apart. So the only thing that could crush you in this matchup, if you're looking at upside, the only thing that could absolutely crush you is that if Michael Carter or Amari DiMercato don't get those rushing touchdowns and they trust Kyler Murray to rush those touchdowns in. Because the way they win this game is probably through running, okay? So if Kyler gets in 2 rushing touchdowns, I think he automatically beats Daniel Jones. So if you believe that the narrative will be that Kyler Murray will actually be the running back featured instead of the other 2, then you want to start Kyler Murray. If not, I'm on Daniel Jones. Kyle, do I trade CeeDee Lamb for BTJ, Rice, and Kamara? I had Malik Benson in my running back 2's Chase Brown. I think I need some depth. Kyle, this is the only reason why I would kind of think about trading CeeDee Lamb, right? Because CeeDee Lamb is not usable to you right now. Yeah, he has the potential to start this week. Yeah, no, he's not starting this week. You are in a hurry to get something done. When CeeDee Lamb comes back, CeeDee Lamb will produce 25, 22, 26, 28, 30 points. Rice has the potential to do that too. Plus, you're getting Kamara. Now, Kamara has some issues, right? They're not utilizing him in the way that they need to utilize him all the time, but you're getting a running back, right? You're getting a running back with Chase Brown there. I would do that trade because of Rice coming back soon. Rice will probably come back at the same point in time CeeDee Lamb will come back, to be honest with you. And then you get the added juice of BTJ and Kamara. Yeah, I'd do it. Underdog said Debo was seen at practice participating, but then clarified he didn't practice, so whatever that means. That sounds like a lot of bullshit to me. And if Debo doesn't play, Luke McCaffrey to the moon, guys. Rams or Cardinals defense this week. So if you go off DraftKings DFS salaries, the Cardinals are a play this week that people are going for, right? I don't feel like the Cardinals have that high degree of turnover upside. Their ceiling is good enough, but I just can't start the Cards this week. I do think the Rams are a good play, but again, this Thursday game, divisional game, could be interesting. I could see the Rams giving Mac Jones some problems, so I'm on the Rams. I think the Rams get some more points. Standing around eating a buffet also is the thing that Debo would want to do. Should I trade Dobbins for Addison? I would, Ruiz. I like Addison moving forward, and I like Dobbins moving forward. If I need a wide receiver, this is a fair trade for Jordan Addison. And this is not to say, this is not because he had that huge game. He's always has the potential to have a huge game, and he could fade in the background with Justin Jefferson. With the big game from RJ Harvey, Dobbins was taken out with a 100-yard performance. Dobbins is solid. If you need a running back, you keep Dobbins. If you need a wide receiver, you go after Addison. This is the type of trade that could benefit all parties involved. Non-PPR flex Mason, Diggs, Hendy, or Higgins need upside. Out of that grouping of guys, I think this is the order. I'm assuming that's T. Higgins and not Jaden Higgins. I think that Diggs is a good enough play. When we look at Diggs overall as a player, the first two games, he had 7 targets, 5 targets, 3 targets week 3. I believe that was a Steeler game. And then 7 targets last week. He's averaging about 5 targets per game. Okay. But he's getting yards. And that's what you want out of a player like Stephon Diggs, right? So, pulling that up and thinking about where the touchdowns could be. I do think they're going to have to pass this ball a decent amount. The only problem is, I don't know if Diggs is the one they want to give the touchdown to, because Hunter Henry's proving that he's probably the guy that they want to give the touchdown to. Mason, again, tough matchup. But again, Browns have to overcome the overseas deficit while the Minnesota Vikings are already there. You could see an early touchdown from Mason, but I'm not projecting a lot of yards for Jordan Mason, okay? Diggs is probably going to get the yards, might not get the touchdown. Henderson, he has upside. Always has upside. And Higgins, I don't think you can start a Bengal right now unless you absolutely needed to. So I'm on Diggs and Mason. But if you need the touchdown, I think you could walk yourself into Mason, but there's not going to be a lot of yards there. That's what I'm saying. Diggs is going to get yards, most likely. Mason will not, but he's more likely to get a touchdown, I feel, out of that grouping of players. In the PPR league, I was thinking about Bourne versus Kirk and was leaning Kirk. Should I just go with Luke McCaffrey now with Terry 100% out and Debo maybe playing hurt if he does play? Wumbo, I think this is a solid get, man. It could backfire in our faces, hardcore 100%. But when I look at when you look at the numbers and how things were trending, right? You look at the projections for some of these guys, right? And Debo is projecting for around 15 points, okay, in full PPR. Debo was projecting for around 15 points. Terry McLaurin was projecting for around 11 points in full PPR. You put Luke McCaffrey into one of those shoes, it doesn't matter which one. That could be Jalen Lane, Luke McCaffrey. I think Luke McCaffrey is a solid play this week. I'd be trotting him out because when you look at the target leaders, and you go to Luke McCaffrey, he had 3 targets last week, 3 targets the week before. So he's down there in the Hunter Long category of targets, but easily could see a boost this week because Noah Brown's probably not playing as well. With his targets that he has 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. Okay. So talk about a little bit of sneaky upside, right? That nobody's going to be thinking about. Tingley, should I start Mandrews or Juwan Johnson? So when we look at Mandrews right now doesn't have a lot of upside, but he does have potential touchdown equity. When I look at the matchup, you're starting Cooper Rush. It's a good matchup on paper. The thing that worries me about Mark Andrews is that while it's a good matchup on paper, it's also a good matchup for Isaiah Likely. And what I know about Cooper Rush is that when Cooper Rush was in last year, you look at the targets for tight ends, and you look at the backup tight end last year, Luke Schoonemaker, right? And you go back to that game. I want to get you the accurate stats, so I'm going back into last year's stat pool here. You go to last year and you go to that Cooper Rush game, right? 10 targets, 56 yards, no touchdowns. The week after that, 4 targets, 1 touchdown. Mind you, the game where I believe that was the Cooper Rush game, right? Where he had 6 receptions, 10 targets for 56 yards, came against Houston. So you could easily point yourself into Mandrews or Isaiah Likely this week. I think Isaiah Likely could be a decent play. You're welcome, Sean. You're welcome, Jesse. Always, always. Dominic, would you trade Jefferson for CD in 12-man PPR? I'm 4-0. My roster is super stacked, and I have depth at wide receiver. Olave, Sutton, and McLaurin. Well, McLaurin right now isn't depth. The doctor's Nathan that I do follow on TikTok, he's projecting that McLaurin, although he's not getting surgery, might be out for longer than people expect. Would I trade Justin Jefferson into CD? While I do trust Dak more than McCarthy, Jefferson's playing right now. And I think right now with where you're at, I want to know when CD's coming back. Because if I'm holding Justin Jefferson there, right, what I would do for your sake is that if CD's not playing this week and Justin Jefferson is, Justin Jefferson is going to be in your starting lineup, I would hope. And the Vikings bye week in 2025 comes in week 6. So if I was trading Justin Jefferson for CD Lamb, I'd do it next week, not this week, if that makes sense. If I was trading Jefferson and a CD Lamb, I'd do it next week, not this week. Jonathan, should I trade Myers for Woody Marks? If he doesn't want that, should I try for Tet? I'm not trading Tet for Woody Marks. I would think about trading Jacoby Myers for Woody Marks. The only thing that you guys want to really be careful about, right, is that was super positive game script for Woody Marks. Okay. Woody Marks seems to have taken over Nick Chubb, seems to be more elite. He's gotten carries, and 21 carries is nothing that you want to your 21 total touches, right? He was definitely buoyed last week by the touchdown numbers, right? So if you think that he can continue to replicate those touchdown numbers, by all means, you can buy into Woody Marks, okay? But again, the Titans are terrible as a run defense, absolutely terrible. This is why people are thinking about trotting out Amari DiMercato, why we're thinking about trotting out Michael Carter. They're bad, okay? And so you look at the game last week, he had 2 total touchdowns, 4 receptions through the air. Yes, he can replicate that, but let's pump the brakes a little bit to see if he can do that against a good team. Do I want to trade Jacoby Myers, a guy who's earning targets for this team, for Woody Marks? Maybe not. If I needed a running back, yes. If I don't, then no. But you can sell high on Woody, but I don't think I'd want to trade away Tet or Myers for Marks unless I absolutely needed a running back. Diggs' routes have gone up. Kayshon Boutte was a red herring week 1. The routes have gone up. He looks good. He looks crisper than before. I know you say he started hurt, so if he's slowly getting used to playing and he's still not 70-80 and getting all those targets, yeah. Wumbo, here's the other thing. If you, and this is for anybody out there that needs a wide receiver, Diggs is a guy that in certain leagues, shallow leagues, that people probably dropped before. If you were holding A.J. Brown and you were only starting 2 wide receivers, or you were holding A.J. Brown, Ricky, and whatnot, you probably dropped Diggs, and that's turning out to be a mistake. But for right now, Diggs is a guy that you could get probably cheaper than you think, and he might pay out. He might not, but he's going to come cheaper than you think. And Noah Brown did not travel with the team. So Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane to the moon potentially. 2-2 flex QB. 2-2, 2 flex. QBs are Kyler, CMC, Jacobs, Judkins, Woody, Harvey, and Sharps at running back. The wide receivers are JSN, London, Rome, JMO, and Hunter. The tight ends are Hunter Henry. Swavey, I think all the moves that we talked about, looking at your team, right? Knowing that you have Rome, I have no issue trading JMO. Okay. Knowing you have Rome, I'm just going to go back up into the chat and pull up your things again so I can take a look at them. Knowing you have Rome Odunze, I don't even think you need to add Ladd to this team. But Ladd as a fourth wide receiver on this team, excellent. If I can move CMC and get into Bijan right now, and my team is Bijan, Jacobs, Judkins, and Woody, yeah, absolutely. Sure, I'm doing that 100% of the time. Trade CMC and Travis Hunter to get into Jonathan Taylor and Pickens. So my team is Jonathan Taylor, Jacobs, Judkins, Harvey, Woody, JSN, London, Rome, JMO, Pickens. At that point in time, you could potentially move some other guys. You asked us a little bit earlier too. You're starting 2 flexes. At this point, if I'm looking at your team and you're sitting here, where are you at? CMC and Jacobs, and you were saying earlier, trade Woody Marks and Hunter Henry for Brock Bowers. Yeah, I mean, looking at that, you have Judkins. If I trade Woody Marks and Hunter Henry and I pick up Brock Bowers and Travion Henderson, and then I flip CMC and JMO and Travis Hunter into Bijan and Ladd, yeah, of course, all those moves in the long term are going to make your team very, very, very good, right? Because Hunter Henry is a touchdown upside kind of guy, but when will those touchdowns dry up? And they might dry up pretty soon, okay? So I'd do the Brock Bowers trade, and then I'd turn around and I'd do the CMC trade for either Bijan or Taylor, whichever one you like more is where I'd be at on that. You have a really solid team there. It's nice to know that all those moving parts are there. You're welcome, Swavey. I hope everything works out. So who the hell do they have other than Debo, Chris Moore, Jalen Lane? I don't even know who they are. So this is one of those moments where you go, who? Who is this? Let's look up at the Washington Commanders depth chart real quick. I know they have Luke McCaffrey. I know they have Jalen Lane. I'm very curious as you are. Chris Moore, Jalen Lane, Luke McCaffrey, tight ends, Zach Ertz, John Bates, Ben Sinnott. Yeah, this is going to be, if all of those wide receivers are Q or out, Luke McCaffrey is going to get looks. Jalen Lane is going to get looks. And it has high upside looks tied to a quarterback that wants to throw the ball deep. Okay. I'm on it. Swavey, it's good to be on the same page. Non-PPR, Judy, Wandale, Diggs, and Addison pick 2. I think if it's non-PPR, Diggs and Addison have your best chance to accumulate the most yards. We said earlier in the show, Wandale is a great play, but I think Wandale has higher PPR upside than he does here. I'm really curious if he's able to get a lot of yardage. Are we going to see the Wandale against Dallas? Are we going to see the Wandale of before? I don't think I can start any wide receiver from Cleveland. So I think I'd end up on Addison and Diggs, and I'd be pretty happy with that, Kyle. Thomas, would you start Michael Carter or Rashid Shaheed in a 10-team PPR league? Thomas, you can go back. If you go back and watch us earlier, we talked a lot about Michael Carter, a lot about Amari DiMercado, and we touched a little bit on Shaheed. In a 10-team PPR league, Shaheed definitely has upside. Okay, but he is rotating in. So if we go and we take a look, take a look at the week 4, and we take a look at where Shaheed's landing in terms of snap share, and just in general overall snap share, it's not great, right? So he's getting around 51 snaps per game on average. He has a 75% snap share. But in terms of touches, he's only touching the ball 9% of the time, and he's getting about 12% of the targets. So it's not that great. Michael Carter's facing against a very bad defense, and it might be the red herring play of the week to play one of these Cardinals running backs because Kyler Murray could rush for those 2 touchdowns like I was talking about when we were talking about Kyler Murray versus Daniel Jones. That could happen. If you see Rashid Shaheed as having the chance to elevate this team right now, I think that He's an interesting play. But I do like Michael Carter this week over Rashid Shaheed. I think she's an interesting play, though. Do you like Woody Marks and Hunter Henry for Trey McBride, or is that too much to give up? I think it really depends on how you feel Trey McBride going forward. I think either trying to go after Trey McBride or Brock Bowers is smart, Swavey. Both of these tight ends have not hit their potential yet. And we know that with the injury to Connor, like we said, if these two running backs don't pan out, they are going to have to pass the ball more. They're not going to be able to sustain a rushing attack with just Kyler Murray alone. You look at Trey McBride's targets, 9, 7, 8, 11. If I can get into Trey McBride, Joe will tell you he doesn't want anything to do with Trey McBride. So that's one opinion. If I could get into Trey McBride, I would. He believes more in Houston than I believe in Houston. But the stats back up that, again, they're going to have a lot of positive game script for Woody Marks to be super relevant in these weeks, and he's going to have to score touchdowns. Again, touchdowns are a part of the game. We can't rely on running backs always getting those receiving touchdowns. So you take that receiving touchdown away, that stat line is nice, but it's worse. All right. And you look at Houston upcoming schedule. And what I would do, honestly, after this Ravens game is I'd take a look and I'd say, okay, look at these defenses. Niners, not so great rush defense. Broncos, not so great rush defense. Jaguars, not so great rush defense. Titans, terrible rush defense. So you look at the next Ravens, Seahawks, Niners, Broncos, Jaguars, Titans. So by November 16th, Woody Marks is probably going to have a couple 20-point games in there. Titans suck. Jaguars rush defense sucks. Broncos rush defense sucks. So you are very likely. I mean, hell, you look at it. If they would have kept giving Chase Brown the rock, he probably would have had over 80 yards. Okay. Broncos rush defense is not very good. So Woody Marks is going to be valuable for the next several weeks if he's going to be the number one guy. Okay. So that's something to think about going forward. If I was 0-4 and needed a 1-for-2 trade for people, I'd be trying to get Diggs as a second piece. If he doesn't pan out, man, yeah, exactly. Diggs is a perfectly fine to get. May is throwing so much. Dicker or Schrader rest of the season, CC. I think both are fine. Schrader because of the indoor games. I think you got to give a little slight bump to Schrader because of the indoor games. You're welcome, Kyle. Kill. I have Hubbard starting, not looking like he's going to play. Do I slot in Corum now off my bench or risk it? Corum's a tough play, man. Corum's a tough play. How's your waiver wire look? You can leave it in the chat. I am going to pop off soon. Going to answer the last of these questions here. Corum's an interesting play, but I don't think it's a guy that I would start. I would risk it enough to wait until Sunday. Swavey, I know I said already, but you have top tier analysis, liked and sub. Thank you. Appreciate it, man. We're here every Monday and Thursday, unless some obligations with family happen. Monday, Thursday, 3:45. Would you drop Sean Tucker for Michael Carter? Quick hit. CC, this is kind of the thing. So I picked up both of these in my league because I said, I lost Bucky. I lost, and I have Chase Brown and I'm dealing with all that stuff. So would I drop Sean Tucker for Michael Carter? Yeah, I would. And here's why. Sean Tucker did have that elite performance that 1 week last year, and he can absolutely replicate that. Okay. But Michael Carter's going up against one of the worst run defenses in the league right now. One of the worst run defenses in the league. He's going to get looks. He's going to get at least 13 carries, and he's probably going to get 52 yards or something like that. I can't guarantee that Sean Tucker is going to get that. I know that the Cardinals have invested in running the ball. Baker Mayfield doesn't have to run the ball. They don't have to run the ball. I think I'll drop Bourne and pick up McCaffrey and wait to see Debo news. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I'm doing too. I thought about picking up Bourne and starting Bourne. I have Debo. I have Luke McCaffrey as well in my sleeper league in the Scott Fish Bowl. So I'm just going to wait out the news as well, I think. Appreciate it, CC. Absolutely. And guard, last thing, 12-man league, so waivers are empty. I can get Davis or Scott. I like Xavier Scott this week, guard. The reason I do like Xavier Scott, he has an interesting role right now. Is it a piece that I'm excited about? No. Is it a piece that the thing is, you're not going to know if Chuba, because 9:30 hits on the East Coast early for us. So you're not going to know if Chuba's truly not starting until those games hit or Saturday night. If by Saturday night Chuba's not starting, of course, get in there. When you look at Xavier Scott, injury updates, that's another thing to think about as well. This is another player who got a little bit more play last week than many people were expecting, right? He caught 8 targets for 6 receptions on 43 yards and a touchdown. The week before, he had 8 carries for 30 yards in a blowout with 1 target. Is Mason going to catch the ball? Xavier Scott could be an interesting option. Gibbs was a great play last week for people that played Gibbs and not Montgomery. I think Xavier Scott for you in this scenario could be really interesting because we're probably going to know if Chuba Hubbard's playing by Saturday. So I'm definitely in on Xavier Scott in that instance in time. RJ Harvey or Michael Carter this week. Brandon, it's going to be hard to sit RJ Harvey after the performance that he had last week, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how Denver approaches this matchup against Philadelphia, and maybe they utilize RJ Harvey in the passing game a little bit more. RJ Harvey does have the chops to do that. I think though, if I'm looking for a touchdown, I think I'd be on Michael Carter. If I'm looking for a pass catching upside, I'm on RJ Harvey. Yeah, you're welcome, guard. You're welcome. Yeah, dude, it's so thin. So this is where we're going to end it, guys. I'm going to cut off questions right there. But in the Scott Fishbowl League, we had 20 rounds. We drafted 20 rounds. You can't make any trades. And I lost Debo. I lost Coker. I lost Chuba. I lost Bucky. And this is the league where you can get like 3.5 points for tight end. So I've been picking up all the tight ends. And I'm just going to be starting those guys because, there's one week where Harold Fannin had like 30 points. And it's crazy. Yes, this is the last point I'm going to say. Mr. Wumbo, thanks for bringing it up. If Isaiah Bond is on your waiver wire, Joe started this episode at the top of the hour telling you about how Njoku is a great play because of the targets that could eventually go to Njoku's way. Isaiah Bond is one of those guys that, and I even lost out on Isaiah Bond on the waiver wire too. If Isaiah Bond is still somehow on your waiver wire and you want to make a move for him, now is probably a good time because this game overseas is probably going to get real nasty for Cleveland real soon. And Dylan Gabriel is going to need to throw it to someone who's going to be open, and Isaiah Bond has a chance to do that. All right, everybody. So I'm going to hit the road. Remember, if we answered all the questions today. So every time you come to Local Football Flavor, you will get your question answered. Please feel free to like, follow, subscribe. If you have any more questions, please leave it in the chat of this video once it's done, and we will hit those questions during the weekend prior to Sunday. Good luck tonight. Good luck this weekend. We wish everybody the best. Local Football Flavor out. We'll join you next Monday, 3:45 for our next stream. Appreciate the love.